Chapter 385. Today's eruption, the third update has arrived. The fourth update is in progress. This was undoubtedly a signal, an absolutely explosive signal. Long Crane and Bear Mountain weren't in the Tion-Fa forest right now. Otherwise, they would have come out to meet them. The third crane and the fourth bear were drinking in the depths of the forest. Long Crane had always been a cautious person, but Bear Mountain had a typical live and let live character. So, Bear Mountain suddenly felt that there was no tiger in the mountain, and the monkey was the king. Boss isn't here, so I'm the boss. Therefore, he had been drinking and merrymaking with Long Crane for the past 2 days. And he hadn't paid any attention to the recent events in Tion-Fa. This simple-minded temperament was similar to that of June Moxie to a certain extent. The two Beast Kings weren't drinking in their human forms. Instead, they were drinking in their true forms. One of them was a huge bear with golden fur, and looked like a small mountain. The fourth crane's true form was that of a red-crowned crane. His entire body was snow-white, and his eyes were as red as 2 dazzling torches. The table in front of the two Beast Kings was made of a huge bluestone. It was 20 feet in diameter. The wine cups were carved out of the roots of a 1,000-year red sandalwood tree. In fact, the amount of wine in one cup was equivalent to the amount of wine in this world. As for the wine that the two Beast Kings were drinking, it was exceptionally fragrant. It was the monkey wine brewed by the monkeys of the Tion-Fa forest, and the two Beast Kings had used their power to get their hands on it. So, they were gorging themselves on it. One of them had thick bear-like lips, while the other had a sharp crane-like beak. Third brother, I've discovered that you're becoming more and more careful. In fact, you're being excessively careful. You're worried about that Tion-Fa's sacred fruit. The big black bear's eyes were hazy with drunkenness. He patted the golden fur on his chest, and spoke in human language. I don't understand why you're worrying about personal gains and losses all day long. Aren't you tired? It was obvious that Long Crane was worried about the matter of the sacred fruit. However, Bear Mountain didn't care about it at all. After all, Bear Mountain had full confidence in that mysterious master. His intuition told him that there was no need for an expert of that level to lie. Therefore, he didn't understand why Long Crane was so worried. In fact, he even despised him. Your big bear brain is full of muscles. What do you know? Long Crane opened his huge eyelids, and looked at Bear Mountain with his ruby-like eyes. One can never be too careful. If that person really disappears, what can you and I do? You bear, your brain is too small. If you go out to mingle, you will definitely be cheated by others. You're just like second brother. You foolishly run away after making a bet. You're also the same. You didn't run away. Bear Mountain was silent for a moment. Then, he spoke in a deep voice. In fact, I believe in that master. But, I also feel that the risk of using the sacred fruit to advance is too great. In fact, there's always the risk of my body exploding. In fact, the success rate of this method may not even reach 30% in the past. But, if that master really has a way to advance without any risks, then it's worth it even if I have to wait and take risks. Long Crane was stunned when he heard Bear Mountain's words. He hadn't expected that the ignorant Bear Mountain would say such a thing. So, he couldn't help but feel that it was very reasonable. I really didn't expect that you, Bear Mountain, would be able to say such a thing. But, it's true that even a fool's thousands of considerations are correct. So, I'll give you a toast for your words. Bear Mountain was very happy when he heard this. He drank 3 or 4 cups of wine in one go. Then, he said, what do you mean by even a fool's thousands of considerations are correct? This king has always been a wise man, but I won't easily open my mouth. Long Crane saw Bear Mountain blow his own trumpet, and couldn't help but smile. He was about to raise his cup to drink when he suddenly thought of something. So, he raised his head and said, I say, you've grown bold, haven't you? Who were you calling third brother a moment ago? I'm your third brother. Don't you have any respect for me? I only praised you once, and you've forgotten about the 4 cardinal directions? What you said just now is reasonable. But this matter is still too risky. After all, the sacred fruit isn't in the hands of our own people. So, it's not appropriate. Bear Mountain snorted and said, What's risky? Don't tell me that you don't want to take risks in the hands of your own people? It's not like it hasn't happened since ancient times, right? Do you want to make another bet with me? Long Crane rolled his red eyes and replied in a somewhat bad manner, When will you get rid of your bad habit of betting? Don't forget that second brother had made himself into someone else's mount because of a bet. I see that you're very likely to do the same thing. Besides, why would we still want to make a bet? We'll both slit our throats in case we can't find that person. Bet? Bet your ass. Bear Mountain was extremely angry. He jumped up and said, I like to bet with you, and I'll bet with you today. I bet that that person isn't the kind of person you're talking about. Long Crane snorted and replied in an indifferent manner, He's not that kind of person? Humph, the dust has already settled on the Shui Hun Manor's matter. So, he should have fulfilled his promise. Even if he didn't fulfill his promise to exchange the sacred fruit for the spirit pills, he should have at least fulfilled his promise to help us break through to the 10th level of Xian Beast. So, why hasn't he appeared yet? Maybe he's been delayed by some other matter. How can a person like him go back on his word? Bear Mountain's confident tone collapsed in an instant. He seemed to be lacking in confidence. A person like him wouldn't go back on his word? Long Crane sighed and said, There are many cases of humans going back on their word. How many people would take a mere promise to heart? Old Bear, you're too naive. Great wisdom appears to be slow-witted? You can fool yourself. Bear Mountain snorted twice. Then, he picked up the huge container of wine and gulped down a mouthful of it. Then, he squinted his eyes. It was obvious that he couldn't bear to see Long Crane being so cautious. Suddenly, he felt an overwhelming and tyrannical pressure coming from the Tian Fa forest. Bear Mountain's entire body trembled. His hands trembled, and he dropped the huge container of wine on the stone table. Then, he jumped up and spoke up in an exceptionally excited manner. It's him. He's come to look for us. He must have come to help us advance. Third Crane, what else do you have to say? Long Crane's face beamed with happiness. He had forgotten about the third crane at this moment. So, he flew up with a bang. Then, he flapped his wings and shouted, Fourth Crane has won his bet. He's really here. The 2 Xian Beast Kings looked at each other, and a look of ecstasy appeared in their eyes. Bear Mountain didn't want to wait any longer. So, he jumped onto Long Crane's back. Then, he pointed to the front and shouted, Quickly take off. His tone was decisive, and his tone was full of command. However, Long Crane wasn't prepared for its weight of several thousand kilograms. So, he didn't take off. Instead, he fell to the ground with a thump. Then, he said angrily, You bastard! You can't come back up after you transform? Fu asterisk K your father. Don't you know that you're 3,000 kilograms heavy? Then, he realized that something was wrong. So, he added, You motherf asterisk cur, hurry up and come down. I'm your third brother, not your mount. Run over by yourself. Bear Mountain didn't let go of his 2 feathers. So, he quickly transformed into his human form, and shamelessly refused to come down. Long Crane was helpless. He was afraid that he would miss this opportunity. So, he flapped his wings and soared into the sky. Then, he rushed towards the source of the pressure at a high speed. Jun Mo Xie stood calmly in the air. All the Xian beasts that felt this extremely powerful pressure were trembling in fear, not daring to make the slightest move. In the face of the enormous pressure of the world, there might not be many Xian beasts in the world that could endure it. Suddenly, the sound of wind and thunder resounded in the distance. Then, a huge shadow flew over. It was Long Crane, who was carrying Bear Mountain on his back. He had arrived in an awe-inspiring manner like a dragon rider from a fantasy legend. June Moxie remained motionless until Long Crane transformed into his human form. Then, both of them landed on the ground in front of him. June Moxie then floated down as a feather. "Senior, you've come." Long Crane was somewhat embarrassed. They had called him Brother Feng back in the Tianxiang city. But they were calling him Senior now. The two Xian Beast Kings felt depressed in their hearts. They didn't know why, but they didn't dare to address him as an equal. Moreover, they had been suspecting him a moment ago. But they had now seen him in person. So, Long Crane felt somewhat embarrassed. "I'm about to leave the Southern Heaven City in a few days. But I suddenly remembered that I owed you a promise. A man can't live without keeping his word. So, how can I leave when I haven't repaid my debt?" June Moxie spoke in an ostentatious manner. "Ha ha ha. Senior is a man of his word." Old Crane was worried that Senior wouldn't come. He thought that Senior would sneak away. But I scolded him in a righteous manner. "Old Crane, do you realize your mistake now?" "Ha ha ha." Bear Mountain grinned proudly. He felt that he had won a big victory. How could he not be happy and proud? This man had come here. So, it meant that he valued his promises. And how could a man who valued his promises so much kidnap the Tian Fa forest's sacred fruit? Doesn't this mean that the spirit pills are also very promising? Therefore, Bear Mountain let go of all his worries in a split second. You damned bearded man. What nonsense are you talking about?" "I don't believe you, Senior." Long Crane was speechless. His fingers were trembling. He wished that he could strangle this bear to death. He hadn't expected that this bear would betray him in order to curry favor with this man. It doesn't matter. It's only human nature. June Moxie chuckled. He didn't know why, but June Moxie would feel particularly happy every time he faced these two Beast Kings. This wasn't the kind of pleasure one would get from showing off. Instead, it was because he didn't need to figure out other people's schemes. Compared to human experts, the Beast Kings of the Tian Fa forest were obviously much more simple and honest. This kind of atmosphere made June Moxie feel relaxed and relaxed. In fact, it seemed as if he had suddenly distanced himself from the endless deception. "Well, I'll keep my word. I've come here to fulfill my promise. You two should get ready. Calm down and adjust your state of mind to the best. The most important thing is to adjust your state of mind to the most peaceful state. I'll take a look at your progress first." June Moxie didn't even realize that there was a faint sense of cordiality in his laughter. Such cordiality was very rare to see, except for Grandpa June, Third Master June, and a few others. Chapter 386. Since ancient times, Xian beasts were still beasts no matter what level they reached. And it didn't matter whether they could take human form or not. So, there was always a faint barrier between them and humans, and no one was willing to stand side by side with Xian beasts. Therefore, the three Holy Lands had come to be known as the Ominous Land. In fact, it would have been the four Holy Lands if it wasn't because of this matter, and not the three Holy Lands and the Ominous Land. And this was the case even for those who stood at the pinnacle of the human world. Therefore, June Moxie had unintentionally revealed this faint feeling of familiarity. Although it was a subtle feeling that came from the bottom of his heart, but this subtle feeling was something that Xian beasts were extremely sensitive to. So, it was undoubtedly something that they had never experienced before. At this moment, Long Crane and Bear Mountain felt that this mysterious person was amiable and trustworthy. Therefore, the two of them didn't hesitate. They looked at June Moxie with exceptional gratitude, and then sat down cross-legged. Soon, a strong smell of alcohol started to evaporate from their bodies. Her slightly flushed face gradually returned to its normal color. Big Bear felt that his zhenqi was flowing freely and his heart was like still water. Just as he was about to open his eyes, suddenly a hand was gently placed on his shoulder, landing on the position of the clavicle well acupuncture point. A gentle voice said, "Calm your mind, don't move. Long Crane, come and protect me. Don't disturb me while I'm casting." Bear Mountain's heart skipped a beat. He removed his guard for the first time, and exposed his entire chi to the probing of this hand. This was the first time that Bear Mountain had unreservedly trusted a human being since he was born. Long Crane complied, and quietly slid a few feet away. He then vigilantly watched his surroundings for any movement. The Tian Fa forest was their territory. But Long Crane was still on high alert at this moment. It seemed as if he was facing a formidable enemy. The reason for that was because this advancement was simply too important to him and Big Bear. With his eyes closed, Bear Mountain felt a slight coolness on his shoulder. It was as if a drop of ice water had suddenly fallen on his bare shoulder in the middle of winter. It was a clear feeling that seeped into his bones. Then, a huge amount of pure heaven and earth spiritual chi surged out from the hand that was caressing his shoulder, and poured into his meridians like a river flowing backwards. In his meridians, the Beast King's Yuan Qi, which had already reached a critical point and was almost at a standstill, slowly moved under the stimulation of this enormous pure energy. Then, his meridians seemed to be slowly receiving some kind of nourishment, and then began to expand bit by bit. To think that there would be such a fast and obvious progress and effect. The shock and admiration in Big Bear's heart instantly reached the extreme, but he still didn't dare to be the slightest bit flustered. He did his best to guide the external powerful chi, and according to his usual cultivation path, he slowly guided it into his dantian. Long Crane stood 30 feet away from Bear Mountain's body. Then, he suddenly discovered that a milky white mist was emitting from Bear Mountain's body. The mist was getting thicker and thicker. In fact, it seemed as if it was condensing into a substantial substance. Then, it slowly enveloped Bear Mountain's entire body. Heaven and earth spiritual chi. Isn't this the sign of a level 10 Xian beast? How can he break through so quickly? How is this possible? Long Crane exclaimed in his heart. He subconsciously rubbed his eyes. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. A miracle had happened in front of his eyes. This was an incredible miracle. In Long Crane's opinion, the mysterious man had promised to help them break through. Even if the mysterious man was sincere in helping them, and even if he had some kind of magical ability, the best outcome would be to find a way to raise their cultivation to the critical point. Then, the two of them would have to go into seclusion to cultivate. Then, they would have to put their lives on the line to successfully break through. That would be the best outcome for them. However, Long Crane hadn't expected that this mysterious peerless expert would be so skillful. In fact, he had used his own strength to help the two of them break through in the blink of an eye. In fact, he hadn't even stopped for a moment. What did this mean? What did it mean? This meant that this mysterious black-clothed man was going to sacrifice a portion of his painstakingly cultivated heaven and earth Yuan Qi to help the two of them. Long Crane's eyes became moist in a split second. For the sake of a bet, an insignificant promise, an oath that could not even be considered an oath in the eyes of such a peerless master, this master actually fulfilled his promise. He had even made such a sacrifice. How many people had kept their promises since ancient times? How could such a person not be trustworthy? Could it be that he had swindled the sacred fruits out of them? That would be a huge joke. One must know that this mysterious man could have easily killed the two of them when the two Xian Beast Kings had lowered their guard. Then, he could have obtained 2 top-notch level 10 Xiandan pills. He wouldn't have needed to pay any price. Instead, he would have gained a great harvest. In fact, it would have been very beneficial to his own cultivation. However, the mysterious man hadn't done so. Instead, he had kept his promise. In fact, he hadn't hesitated to sacrifice his own strength in order to help the two of them break through. Long Crane asked himself, would I do it if I could help Bear Mountain break through by sacrificing my own strength? Long Crane's face turned red with shame after he had carefully considered this matter. That was because he had made a decision in his heart. I won't do it. I'm not willing to sacrifice myself for the sake of my own brother. So, how can anyone else do it? This mysterious man in black was worthy of the admiration of everyone in the world. Anyone could feel at ease and feel honored to be friends with such a person. Jun Dashao would have fainted from happiness if he had known that the two Xian Beast Kings were thinking this way. Moreover, they would have woken up and then fainted again. There seemed to be too many misunderstandings in between. Jun Moxie had kept his promise, and he had indeed consumed a huge amount of pure energy. But he hadn't sacrificed his own strength to help the two of them break through. In fact, Jun Moxie would have never agreed to it if that had been the case. Jun Dashao had never been a great hero. So, how could he have done such a good deed? The reason was none other than the fact that the precious energy of the Xian beasts of Tian Fa was too much for Dashao. After all, the amount of energy in the Hong Jun Pagoda was too huge for Jun Moxie. In fact, it was inexhaustible. Moreover, more and more energy would be absorbed every day as he practiced. So, he wouldn't have to worry about the problem of energy depletion. To Jun Mo Xie, using the Hongjun Pagoda's aura to help Xian beasts advance to the next level was akin to a rich man guarding a huge Himalayan mountain. He was flaunting his wealth in front of ordinary office workers. Then, he would give a few gold coins to each of them, and generously say, "It's nothing. Take it and spend it." Well, it should be more or less like that. Moreover, the simplicity of the two Xian Beast Kings, Bear Mountain and Long Crane, was very much to Jun Moxie's liking. Therefore, Jun Moxie was willing to help them. Moreover, there were many benefits to helping them. These two weren't ordinary people. In fact, they were comparable to the great masters. If Sure-En befriended these two people, it wouldn't do him any harm no matter what. It was often said that having one friend who could truly help one was enough in this world. But who would complain about having too many of such friends? On the other hand, the other party had helped him a lot. Moreover, he had also obtained the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit and many other elixirs from them. Jun Moxie felt that what he had done for him wasn't even worth mentioning in comparison to what the other party had done for him. Jun Moxie felt somewhat ashamed in his heart. Dashao wasn't a good person. But he still had a conscience. Well, what the other party had done for him wasn't even worth mentioning in comparison to what he had done for the other party. The two Xian Beast Kings were thinking of the same thing at the same time. In fact, this feeling was 10,000 times stronger than that of Jun Moxie's. They are truly peerless experts. Bear Mountain sighed in his heart. He was infinitely moved. Suddenly, he felt the energy in his dantian start to rotate. It was getting more and more urgent. It had formed a whirlpool in his dantian, and all the energy in the world had started to crazily converge in a split second. Spirit gathering. He had finally reached the critical point, and he was going to make an explosive breakthrough without stopping. Bear Mountain's mind tightened. He couldn't afford to let his imagination run wild. Instead, he did his utmost to push the energy in his body. Then, he started to cooperate with the extremely vigorous energy that was being transmitted from that warm hand. It was enough to shake the heavens and the earth. Boom! The thick fog around Bear Mountain suddenly disappeared. Then, a loud sound was heard. No one knew where this sound had come from, but it seemed as if it had reverberated in everyone's mind. It was a very mysterious feeling. Jun Moxie's body suddenly flashed. He had moved 30 meters away, and was now standing shoulder to shoulder with Long Crane. Her black mask had become somewhat damp with sweat, and her body seemed to be trembling. In short, Long Crane saw that she was doing her best, and was in a state of exhaustion. Long Crane was extremely grateful. He was about to speak, but he saw Jun Moxie raise his index finger and place it in front of his mouth. Then, he said, "Don't be impatient. I'm about to make a breakthrough. How could a beast king like Long Crane not know about this? He had clearly felt his soul tremble. And he knew that Bear Mountain had finally made a breakthrough. He had become a real Bear King from now on. Bear Mountain's strength was no less than that of the second great master Li Ju Tian at his peak. In fact, he might even be stronger than him. A low but abnormally vigorous roar came out from Big Bear's mouth. At the same time, a dazzling golden halo suddenly spread out from his body. Everywhere it passed, even the ground was reflected in a golden color. Bear Mountain's body started to move without any wind, and he slowly rose up from the ground. Then, the sounds of his bones cracking could be heard. In fact, the sound of his soul exploding could be heard. Then, the sound of his true qi exploded. Boom! Bear Mountain's accumulated true qi had finally burst out, and his majestic body reverted to its original form in midair. He was a tall, strong, and ferocious giant bear. All of the golden fur on his body suddenly stood up. Every single strand of golden fur seemed to be overflowing with light and vibrant colors. This strange phenomenon slowly stopped after a long time. All the Xian beasts in the Tianfa forest kept quiet out of fear. Even the Xian beast kings were trembling with fear. They could tell from the fluctuations in their souls that another peerless expert had appeared in the Tianfa forest. It was a genuine Xian beast king. This chapter has repeated a paragraph, but it has been edited to add another 400 words. Thank you to the fifth author, Xian Yinju, for the reminder. Chapter 387. Today's first update has been delivered. Thank you for your support. The second update will come later. Bear Mountain returned to his human form after a long time. He was overjoyed as he examined his body. It seemed as if he was still in a dream. But that wonderful dreamlike feeling didn't disappear even after a long time had passed. It wasn't until he checked his entire body that he finally believed that he had really advanced. Bear Mountain looked up to the sky and let out a long and loud cry. His huge eyes were rolling with tears. He suddenly strode over to June Moxie and knelt down with a thump. June Moxie was startled. He didn't have enough time to stop Bear Mountain. Bear Mountain kowtowed a few times and said in a choked voice, "Thank you. Thank you. Thank you." Long Crane's eyes also turned red. He was also a beast king, and he was stuck at the same bottleneck. So, he could understand Bear Mountain's feelings. And he also understood why Bear Mountain was kowtowing. That was because this mysterious expert had undoubtedly given them a new lease of life. June Moxie hastily helped forth Bear up and said, "What are you doing? This is only a bet, and I'm only fulfilling my promise. So, there's no need to do this." June Dashao felt a little disgusted as he said these words. This was a typical case of showing off one's cleverness after taking advantage of others. This is a small contribution, but a big gain. Doing 10 or 8 great clans a day wouldn't be too much. And I'll do a few more great clans if I have the opportunity. Bear Mountain and Long Crane didn't feel this way. Their eyes were still brimming with tears as they said, "This is a bet, and it may not be a big deal in your eyes. But this old bear has given me a new lease of life. I can't thank you enough. So, if the senior has any errands to run, please don't hesitate to tell me. This old bear doesn't have much else. But I'm not stingy with my strength. The name Great Earth Bear King isn't just for show." June Moxie looked at Bear Mountain. His eyes were shining with sincerity. Suddenly, June Moxie felt that his original utilitarian thoughts were somewhat despicable in the face of such sincerity. He looked up to the sky and let out a long sigh. He had finally figured it out. To his subordinates or enemies, he might need to use schemes, no matter how heavy the schemes were. But to his true friends, there was no need to scheme at all. Even if he used a little, it would be too much. And Bear Mountain was clearly such a person. As long as he received someone else's kindness, he would never forget it until he died. Such a person is worthy to be friends. Junimosier gently patted Big Bear's shoulder, and said in a serious tone, "Old Bear, don't be like this. I really think of you as a friend." He took a deep breath and slowly said, "I don't have many friends in this world. You can be considered as one of them. So you don't need to thank me." In a split second, Big Bear's hairy face glowed with radiance. He was overjoyed and said, "Good. Good. This old bear is being unreasonable. Ha ha." June Moxie chuckled and said, "Now, it's your turn to stand guard. I'll lend Crane King a hand. I'll fulfill my promise." Long Crane asked worriedly, "You've just consumed a lot of energy. Do you want to rest? Give me a reply?" June Moxie said, "No need. I can still bear it. Come." He then stretched out his hand. Long Crane hesitated for a moment. He repeatedly looked at Junimosier to make sure that he was all right. Then, he finally sat down. After some time, June Moxie looked at the ecstatic Long Crane and Bear Mountain. And he suddenly felt very happy in his heart. In fact, it was an indescribable feeling of happiness. This kind of happiness was completely different from the pleasure of successfully plotting against someone, or the ecstasy of obtaining an unexpected treasure, or the relief of killing an enemy. This was pure happiness. But this kind of happiness gave June Moxie the greatest enjoyment. It turns out that killing isn't the only thrill that comes from fighting and killing others. Helping others once in a while is also a very comfortable feeling. June Moxie smiled as he thought about it. June Moxie spent the rest of the night in a very comfortable, happy, and contented manner. Big Bear and Long Crane were doing their utmost to invite this great benefactor to join them. In fact, they had even made a solemn vow that they had prepared a huge amount of monkey wine in order to show their sincerity. It was difficult to refuse their hospitality. Moreover, the two Beast Kings had already said that. So, it would be unreasonable for Dachau to refuse. Moreover, there was still a lot of time before daybreak. So, June Moxie happily went to meet them. The monkey wine was a legendary wine. In fact, it couldn't even be compared to the inferior wines of this world. So, it would be a waste if he didn't try since he had such a great opportunity. Bear Mountain continued to issue orders along the way. He made the level 9 Xian beasts and level 8 Xian beasts contribute their best food. In fact, he even requested them to be sent over at the speed of the Crane King. The center of the Tian Fa forest had turned into a chaotic mess. This chaos was even bigger than the previous Xian beast wave. The Tian Fa forest had always been quiet in the dark of the night. But the sky was filled with dust today. The high-level Xian beasts were scurrying around like headless flies. The previous Xian beast wave had caused a huge commotion. However, it hadn't had the slightest effect on the interior of the Tian Fa forest. But it was different this time. It had blossomed inside the forest. It was common to see such a scene. A bear carrying a pile of fragrant red fruits dashed from the south to the north, its heavy footsteps causing the ground to tremble. On the other side, there was also a golden tiger carrying fruits and galloping at full speed. Then, the two level 9 Xian beasts coincidentally collided with each other with a bang. They fell to the ground, and the precious fruits were scattered all over the ground. The Tiger King, the Lion King, and the Eagle King had also rushed over like a whirlwind. There weren't many opportunities to drink wine at the same table with a super strong expert. Only a fool wouldn't seize this opportunity with all his might. Perhaps he would be able to make a breakthrough with just a few words from this strong expert. Didn't you see that third and fourth brother had made a breakthrough in such a baffling manner? Forget about the sacred fruit. Even a miraculous heavenly treasure wouldn't be able to produce such a terrifying effect, right? June Moxie's eyes opened wide when he saw that huge stone table. June Moxie felt a strong sense of dizziness when he saw those two wine cups. He even suspected that Bear Mountain and Long Crane hadn't invited him to drink wine. But they had invited him to take a bath. Those wine cups and the utensils used to hold the wine were too big. In fact, even a large bathtub wouldn't be that big then. He saw the golden-haired monkeys working tirelessly to carry barrels of monkey wine. They were carrying small barrels. After all, the size of the monkeys wasn't as ridiculous as the 3 cranes and the 4 bears. In the distance, there were countless golden-haired monkeys working persistently to carry the barrels. Their target was the same place. Then, the level 9 Xian beasts, level 9 Xian beasts, and level 8 Xian beasts presented countless precious fruits with flattering expressions on their faces. Then, they wagged their tails and retreated in glory. Good heavens! I've never seen or eaten these fruits. In fact, I've only heard of them in legends. Daxiao's eyes couldn't help but shine with a blue light. How much wealth can I create if I bring these fruits back to the Tianxiang city? The fruits here are enough to move people's hearts. But the strange Xian beasts around them are even more astonishing. Who has ever seen a tiger or a bear with such human-like flattery? I've seen it. Moreover, it's not just 1 or 2 beasts. It's not just a group or 2. Instead, it's a lot. How can such a situation not be strange? Everything in front of me has been prepared to welcome this young master. Jun Moxie suddenly became arrogant. Jun Moxie suddenly felt that he was a legendary figure, the great sage equaling heavens. Only when the great sage equaling heavens had wreaked havoc in the heavenly palace, when he had occupied the mountain of flowers and fruits as the king of the 72 caves had come to join him. This kind of comfortable life is simply the life of an immortal. Silently, a huge snow-white lion came to the stone table in an extremely respectful manner. It cupped its 2 furry paws towards Jun Moxie in a somewhat restrained manner. Then, its buttocks rubbed against half of the stone bench, and it sat down. Its iron-like tail swayed behind it like a flagpole. It swayed back and forth non-stop. Jun Moxie was dumbstruck for a while. He finally understood that this guy had cupped its paws to salute him. Moreover, it had cupped its hands in greeting. It's too polite. This is truly shocking. Bear Mountain, who had already taken his seat, introduced, Senior, this is my 6th brother, the Lion King, Worryless Stone. Jun Moxie coughed violently. Lion King? His surname is sh*t? sh*t doesn't stink? This name is really very unique. Long Crane and Bear Mountain were instantly petrified. They were dumbstruck. The white jade Lion King's forehead was full of black lines. He was so embarrassed that he wanted to drill into the ground and escape. He looked at Bear Mountain with an awkward expression on his face, as if to say, "Hurry up and explain to me. This kind of name is so disgusting that I won't even have the mood to drink. Senior, you misunderstand. My 6th brother's surname is a homonym for lion. It means stone, as in stone, worry, as in worry, and worry, as in not worry, Long Crane coughed as he explained. So that's how it is. I was thinking too much. I ask the Lion King to forgive me. Jun Moxie nodded and cupped his hands towards the Lion King. The Lion King immediately quieted down. This great master is apologizing to me. This is indeed the bearing of a great master. Worryless Stone had a bellyful of unhappiness. But he suddenly felt that he had gained a lot of face at this moment. The other golden-robed man had also arrived in front of the stone table. He was about to speak when he heard the phrase, "Shit doesn't stink." So, he hastily bowed as he saw Jun Moxie's gaze turn towards him. This is the 9th brother, the Golden Tiger King, Earthcracker. Bear Mountain grinned as he introduced. His eyes were brimming with a smile. It was obvious that he hadn't gotten rid of the joke of "shit doesn't stink." Tiger King, Earthcracker. This name is very powerful. It's comparable to Bear King's. One can split mountains and the other can split the earth. It's very interesting. Jun Moxie's eyes were very gentle behind his veil. The Golden Tiger King, Earthcracker, was very pleased with this evaluation. He was overwhelmed by the favor and sat down. Chapter 388. Today's second night has arrived. Tomorrow's outbreak will continue for the 5th time this month, and the first night will be at midnight. Tomorrow's outbreak will end the 3rd part of the Tian-Fa forest, and officially enter the 4th part, the Silver Blizzard City. Suddenly, a dark cloud covered the sky, and a huge Eagle King spread its wings and glided over to the top of everyone's heads. Then, its body rapidly shrank, and turned into a cold-looking man dressed in iron-colored clothes. His hooked nose hung on his face, and he looked quite ferocious. Then, he cupped his hands and bowed respectfully to June Moxie. "This is my 10th brother, the Eagle King, the Sky Shatterer." Long Crane introduced him this time. It seemed that the Tian-Fa forest's flying Xian beasts were under Long Crane's control, and the land Xian beasts were under Bear Mountain's jurisdiction. In the distance, there was another monkey that was obviously much larger than the other monkeys. It flew over at lightning speed. He was panting as he bowed to June Moxie. "This is my 7th brother, the Monkey King. His name is Ho Chi." Bear Mountain looked a little sad. Then, he said, "8th sister, the Snake King, you've seen her before, but she and the eldest brother have gone out to handle some matters, and are not in the forest. The youngest brother is in closed-door training, and hasn't appeared for 3 years, so that's how it is. I had only met the Venerable May of Tian-Fa's Beast King for a short time, and it's a pity that I didn't get the chance to meet him. What a pity! And that Snake King, that little girl, dares to take responsibility for her actions, and this king admires her." June Moxie chuckled as he said this, and covered the glass with his hand. The Beast Kings thought that he was going to drink, but they waited for a long time, and didn't see him pick up the glass. They couldn't help but feel puzzled. Suddenly, a burst of wine vapor floated above the glass, and a strong fragrance assailed their nostrils. It was the smell of the monkey wine. Then, it circled in the air, and disappeared into June Moxie's mask. June Moxie smacked his lips, and closed his eyes as if he was savoring the aftertaste. After a while, he said, "Good wine! It's worthy of being called monkey wine. It truly lives up to its reputation." All the Beast Kings were stunned. As expected of an expert. Even the way he drank wine was so unique. The Beast Kings had planned to use the opportunity of drinking to see what this peerless expert looked like. However, June Moxie's move had completely ruined their plans. All of them could not help but sigh, feeling a little disappointed. June Moxie suddenly changed the topic and asked, "By the way, old bear, I'm a little confused by your introduction. I know that the Tian-Fa forest has always been ranked according to one's strength. It has been like this since ancient times. It is not a secret. But why is it that the 9th Tiger King and the 10th Eagle King can transform into human form, but the 6th Lion King and the 7th Monkey King are still in their original forms?" As soon as he said that, the atmosphere instantly became heavy. The eyes of the Lion King, Carefree Rock, and the Monkey King, Ho Chi, emitted extremely strong sadness. "Since Mr. is inquiring, we will naturally tell you. This isn't a secret. 60 years ago, the Lion King and the Monkey King wanted to leave Tian-Fa and explore the outside world." Long Crane's tone was deep as he continued, "But I didn't have any experience in the martial world after I went out. So, I accidentally exposed my whereabouts. 4 of the 8 great masters attacked me at the same time, and they joined hands to launch a pincer attack. And the 6th and the 7th masters were no match for them. So, they had to fight and flee at the same time. They were lucky enough to escape back to Tian-Fa. But they inevitably sustained serious injuries. That battle left them with serious injuries that couldn't be healed. Their lives were saved, but their cultivation levels fell back to the 9th level. So, they lost the ability to transform into human form. And it's still difficult for them to recover to this day. Long Crane said in grief and indignation. Lei Bao Yu and Bu Quang Feng were among the 4 great masters. Our eldest brother was furious at that time. He personally went to the hermitage to seek justice. But the hermitage was full of experts. So, we were no match for them. So, the matter was left unsettled. Alas! The Lion King and the Monkey King sadly hung their heads. Their strength had been damaged, and their cultivation levels had regressed. They were in a precarious situation in a place like the Tian Fa forest, where strength was respected. The 2 Beast Kings would have to hand over their king's position if a level 9 Xian beast were to appear in their respective tribes again. Several level 9 Xian beasts had risen among the Monkey King and the Lion King after 60 years of accumulation. And they were only a step away from transforming into human form. So, they had seriously threatened the leadership positions of the 2 Beast Kings. But their strength had regressed. So, they couldn't do anything about it. The rules were the rules. Only tyrannical strength mattered. The 2 Beast Kings had even discovered that discordant voices had started to appear in the people they were commanding. They weren't like they used to be. Their words were the law, and their orders were strictly obeyed. They had absolute authority and absolute strength. If it weren't for the help of the other Beast King brothers, it would have been too horrible to imagine. But the old and the new would replace the old. The strong would emerge, and the weak would be eliminated. This was a principle that hadn't changed for thousands of years. Once a new Beast King successfully transformed into human form, they would have to abide by the law of survival of the fittest in the Tian Fa forest. Bear Shan Shan and the others couldn't interfere in the struggle between the Beast Kings. Then, it would be the end of the road for the Beast Kings. Injured? Hee, what kind of injury is it? It's so sharp, and the consequences are so serious. Let me take a look. Maybe there's a way to save them. Jun Moxie's words shook the 6 Beast Kings. Their eyes revealed a look of ecstasy. Who was this person in front of them? This was a true, peerless expert who had reached the pinnacle of the world. They believed that there was nothing in this world that he couldn't do. He didn't say that he would help them. But the 2 Beast Kings would have hope as long as he helped them. He was a peerless expert who could help the 2 Beast Kings advance in an instant. So, what if they were to suffer some minor injuries? The Lion King and the Monkey King were so excited that their bodies trembled. The hope that they hadn't seen for a long time was right in front of them. Jun Emosia leisurely stretched out his hand and gently placed it on the Lion King's thick and furry shoulder. A wisp of pure and refreshing heaven-earth essence qi seeped into the Lion King's body, making the Lion King feel extremely comfortable. That wisp of extremely pure heaven-earth yuan qi circulated in the Lion King's body. After a long time, Jun Moxie put down his hand and placed it on the Monkey King's shoulder. The other Beast Kings looked at him nervously. None of them dared to make a sound. They were afraid that they would disturb this great expert. Because Jun Moxie was wearing a mask, they couldn't see the expression of this mysterious expert. They could only try their best to guess from his eyes. However, Jun Moxie's eyes were gentle and calm. They couldn't see anything. After the time it took to eat a meal, Jun Moxie finally stopped his movements. He slowly let out a long sigh. But this sigh sounded like a sigh in the ears of the 6 Beast Kings. Their hearts started to beat nervously at the same time. The injuries of the 6th Beast King and the 7th Beast King are not light. Their meridians have been severely damaged. Some of them have been shattered. Moreover, the circulation of the Dantian Yuan Qi has been blocked. Moreover, there's an inexplicable and malicious power that has been hiding in your meridians for many years. It's difficult to get rid of it. This is a sinister and poisonous energy. It's constantly destroying your meridians that should have been repaired a long time ago. Although it's not much, it's enough to make your cultivation stagnate. It can even cause your cultivation to decline step by step. I believe that this kind of sign, or at least the trend, has already appeared. Jun Moxie sighed and said, "This kind of sinister and poisonous mysterious technique, which one of the four great masters did you suffer from? The Lion King and the Monkey King were startled. They looked at each other and saw the answer in each other's eyes. The Lion King dipped his claws in the wine, and slowly wrote a few words on the table. They had lost the ability to speak like a human after they had lost their ability to transform. However, they could still write. The Great Master of the Underworld. So, it's the Underworld's mysterious wind. No wonder it's so sinister. Long Crane and the others shouted. Senior, is there any hope that you can cure them since you've found out? Bear Mountain asked nervously. The Lion King and the Monkey King were both walking beasts. So, they were considered the main forces of Bear Mountain's side. Moreover, they had cooperated with each other for a long time. So, they were already familiar with each other. So, it was hard to guarantee that Bear Mountain would have to go through a lot of trouble if two new Beast Kings were to come up. So, it was hard to say how long it would take for them to achieve that kind of seamless cooperation. That Underworld's mysterious wind is sinister and incisive. Moreover, it's an old injury that has lasted for 60 years. June Moxie shook his head in a seemingly unintentional manner. The 6th Beast King and the 7th Beast King couldn't help but feel disheartened when they saw that even an expert like June Moxie was at a loss. In fact, all their hopes had turned to dust. Bear Mountain's complexion also changed. Don't tell me that we don't even have the opportunity to try? June Moxie calmly looked at Bear Mountain's anxious expression. Then, he took a deep breath, and his eyes revealed a warm expression as he said, "No matter who's in the right or wrong in this matter, it's a grudge from 60 years ago. So, I didn't want to get involved. Fine, I'll give you face. It's fate that we've met. I'll help them this time. This injury is troublesome. But it depends on who's going to treat it. The Underworld's mysterious wind is vicious. But it's nothing in my eyes." With a single sentence, he had given Big Bear a huge amount of face. Bear Mountain became excited as soon as he heard these words. His broad black face was full of surprise, glory, and pride. He grinned widely and didn't know what to say. "Look, this is the face of this old bear. Brother Feng is too generous. Wah, this makes me so excited." The Lion King and the Monkey King couldn't help but shiver. This good news was no less than a bolt from the blue for them. It shook them so much that their hearts almost stopped beating for a short period of time. One moment was hell, and the next was heaven. They had been in a hopeless situation a moment ago. But they had received such a big surprise the next moment. This had made the Lion King and the Monkey King feel that their hearts couldn't bear the burden. After all, even their big brother, whom they regarded as a deity, was helpless. In fact, expert Feng had denied it a while ago. In fact, this kind of injury to his meridians was a piece of cake for June Moxie. Take Jun Wui's injury for example. Even if Great Master Shen Xian had gone to treat it with all his heart, he would have lost most of his Xian cultivation even if he had prepared all the necessary medicines. Moreover, this loss of Xian cultivation couldn't be recovered. So, it would have been a detriment to both sides. Take Bear Mountain and Long Crane's advancement as an example. Even if the lords of the 3 Holy Lands joined hands to help them, it would have been impossible. But these unrecoverable and impossible things didn't count for much in Jun Dashao's hands. Chapter 389. There was no other reason than the fact that the Hongjun Pagoda's aura was the natural nemesis of these sinister forces. Moreover, it was the most vigorous and pure energy in the world. In other words, it was the power of life. At the beginning of the world, the Hongmeng appeared. And it was because of the Hongmeng aura that all living things could be born. And Jun Moxie's Hongjun Pagoda was the source of this power. Of course, it had to be adapted to the local conditions. In fact, Jun Moxie's aura wouldn't be of any use if it was just a small cold or fever. Jun Moxie had always been very enthusiastic about the Tianfa forest. So, June Moxie suddenly had an idea after he had helped Bear Mountain and Long Crane advance. After all, it was impossible for him to stay in the noisy secular world for a lifetime. And June Moxie was very tired of that kind of chaotic life. His life had just begun, but June Moxie was already thinking about going into seclusion after a long time. There would come a day when he would feel the loneliness of the pinnacle after he had settled his debts of gratitude and revenge. Then, he would have to find a quiet place to return to. And the Tian-Fa forest was undoubtedly the most ideal place for June Moxie to go into seclusion. In fact, even a grass snake in the Tian-Fa forest was much more amiable in June Moxie's eyes than those high-ranking officials who occupied the imperial court in the secular world. Because there was no scheming in the secular world here. June Moxie hated scheming to the extreme. Although he would often play some tricks, but this evil monarch still longed for a direct confrontation. Who was more powerful than the other? Wouldn't you know if you stretched out your fist to see? Why do you have to fight to the death? What's the point of wasting time? In fact, June Moxie had an idea, or rather, a grand blueprint. I will set the rules of this world if I climb to the top one day and look down on all living beings. I will use my method to limit this world. I don't care if you are Xin Xian or Supreme Martial Artist. Under my rules, no one can go against it. I have no intention of becoming the ruler of the world, but I want the world to understand my intentions. Every year, all profound practitioners would have to take part in the assessment. From the first level of low profound to the 12th level of Xin Xian, every level would have its own set of clothes. Only when you reached a certain level could you wear the same colored clothes. If you couldn't reach that level, you would have to wear your original clothes. Otherwise, he would not be responsible if he was killed. In this way, it would be like kindergarten to university in his previous life, with a clear hierarchy. And the headquarters of all this, the place that could control everything, the place where the overall decision was made, was the Tian-Fa forest. The place where the evil prince would live in seclusion. June Moxie even imagined that perhaps it would be a good idea to use hats to determine the grade. As he thought about it, he couldn't help but smile, because he imagined an interesting scene. Two people meet, quarrel for a while, and just as they were about to fight, they saw each other's hats, and then they shook hands and chatted happily. Ah, so you're a cuckold and I'm a black hat. Then I'm much lower than you, so why are we still fighting? Come, let's go drink, my treat. Yes, look at your hat, it's really ugly. Black, hee, look at me, green, sparkling and cute. Admirable. You're actually wearing a green hat. You flatter me. Hee, as long as you work hard, one day you will also wear a green hat, hee. Thank you, I hope so, haha. As soon as June Moxie thought of such a scene, how could he not be carried away by a whim? He couldn't help but laugh. June Moxie would never have thought that this sudden whim of his would really become the supreme law of the Xian continent for thousands of years to come. The evil prince's law. 1,000 years of hard work. It was because of this. Naturally it won't be decided by a green hat. Let's be embarrassed first. At this moment, all the beast kings were looking at this otherworldly expert in bewilderment. They couldn't make heads or tails of what was going on. But seeing him laughing so happily, they assumed that he was very confident about the Lion King and the Monkey King's old injuries. So, they couldn't help but feel relieved. That's right, how could he laugh so happily and so easily if he wasn't confident? June Moxie's mind wandered for a long time. Then, he came back to his senses. He chuckled twice and said, "In that case, let's not delay any further. 6th Shur and 7th Ho, come to me. I'll immediately take a look at you. You might as well return to your human form as soon as possible. It'll be convenient for you to drink. The two of you sitting on the table in this form is really somewhat indecent." June Dashao thought, this is the first time this young master is drinking in the Tian-Fa forest. Do I have to drink with a lion and a monkey? That's so embarrassing. Although I'll still be a lion and a monkey after transforming into human form, but at least I'll be in human form. Besides, isn't this to pave the way for the future? Therefore, Jun Dashao was very proactive. The Lion King's eyes were brimming with tears. He shook the white fur on his body like an exceptionally obedient puppy. He came to Jun Moxie, and crouched down in front of him. He then wagged his tail. However, the frequency of wagging his tail had increased due to his excitement. And the wine cup in Bear Mountain's hand was thrown far away with a loud bang. The Beast Kings burst into laughter. Jun Moxie didn't mind. He didn't delay either. He pressed his hand on the cup. Then, his breath sank and the Hongjun Pagoda's aura erupted with a loud rumble. It was dazzling and brilliant, and it soared into the blue sky. The other 5 Beast Kings were shocked. So, they hurriedly retreated. This time, Jun Moxie had done his utmost in order to finish this fight quickly. Moreover, it wasn't early. So, he didn't have much time to waste. However, this extreme display of power wasn't as gentle as when he had helped Long Crane and Bear Mountain break through their barriers. The aura surged violently like a tidal wave, and entered the Lion King's meridians. His broken meridians were connected in an instant. The unimaginably tyrannical impact caused the mighty and majestic Lion King to raise his head and let out a blood-curdling screech. Then, he spouted a mouthful of blood into the sky. Then, the aura that had been entangled in the Lion King's body for 60 years was expelled. In fact, it seemed as if the Beggar Clan's clan leader was using a dog-beating stick to beat up a stray dog. Then, a few thin arrows of blood sprayed out of his body. The turbulent aura of the heaven and earth had completed its task. Then, it revolved around the Lion King's meridians to ensure that there wasn't any residual aura left. Then, it was withdrawn. Jun Moxie didn't open his eyes. Instead, he pushed the Lion King to one side, and said in a cold voice, "Next." His tone was indifferent and overbearing. In fact, it seemed as if he was a doctor in a primary school. He hadn't even pulled out the needle, but he was already calling for the next one. What? It's over? This is too miraculous. Isn't it too miraculous? The Monkey King trembled as it moved forward. It occupied the Lion King's previous position. However, it didn't feel that it was ready. Then, it felt as if a mountain had been placed on its shoulders. Then, the aura of the heaven and earth poured into its body, just as the Monkey King was about to let out a moan to express the pleasure in its heart. It didn't expect that an intense heart-wrenching pain would rise up in an instant. It immediately grit its teeth and let out a roar as it spat out a mouthful of thick black blood. It actually pierced through a large tree in front of it. It's too painful. My God. How can treating an illness be more painful than the torture of 1,000 cuts? This is the method of an expert. It's extraordinary. The Golden Monkey King was thinking this when he suddenly heard a burst of ecstatic cheers. Amidst his busy schedule and extreme pain, he glanced out of the corner of his eye. Immediately, his eyes widened to the maximum. Oh my beast God! My God! It's a miracle! It's a living miracle! It was a strange, yet familiar figure. A tall and imposing man dressed in white was standing beside him. Isn't this the Lion King? Damn! So fast! It's almost instantaneous. Ah! The Monkey King was thoroughly envious. However, he was also thoroughly relieved. It doesn't matter how painful it is. As long as I can recover, a little pain is nothing. Let's make the pain more intense. At this moment, the Monkey King had completely forgotten about the extreme pain in his body. Instead, he felt ecstatic. Ecstatic from the bottom of his heart. He couldn't help but let out a few wild laughs of joy and excitement. His wild laughter startled the other Beast Kings. In fact, even Jun Moxie's aura fluctuated a little. Boss, when can you not laugh? Why do you have to go crazy at this critical moment? Even if you don't want to live, I still want to live. However, in the midst of extreme pain, he was laughing maniacally. This Monkey King's cultivation realm had truly surpassed that of Guan Yu, who scraped bones to cure poison in the Three Kingdoms. He's a real man. The black gas that had been trapped for many years shot out of the Monkey King's body along with the dark red blood arrow. Jun Moxie let out a breath and said, "All right, everyone can have a good drink." When he raised his head, he discovered that the 6 Beast Kings were looking at him with a strange expression. This kind of gaze reminded Jun Moxie of the eyes of the pilgrims who had run through the snowy plains in his previous life. They were filled with fanaticism. Yes, fanaticism. Fanaticism from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if a monk had suddenly seen Buddha, a Taoist priest had suddenly seen Laozi Taishang, or a reactionary had suddenly seen Hitler. He's definitely an idol. He's definitely a god. He's definitely, sob, too amazing, too touching, too awesome. Jun Moxie smiled in satisfaction as he looked at the 6 Beast Kings lined up in front of him. They were all in their human forms. Jun Moxie forcefully stopped the 6 Beast Kings from bowing and expressing their gratitude. Then, he leisurely said a few words to dispel the Beast Kings' intentions of expressing their gratitude. "Do you think that I helped you because of your gratitude?" This was a very simple and innocent sentence, but it caused all the Beast Kings to fall into deep thought. That's right, great kindness cannot be expressed with words of gratitude. Let's keep the words of gratitude in our hearts. What does a simple word of thanks count for? But if this expert is of use to us in the future, we can spare no effort to help him. Even if we lose our lives because of this, we won't hesitate. Why do we have to say it and ruin the atmosphere at this moment? For a moment, the same thought appeared in the hearts of all the Beast Kings. Although they didn't say any words of gratitude, regardless of whether it was their eyes or their actions, they all expressed their respect for this mysterious expert in front of them. Many of my friends said that you're in a good state these few days. Save more manuscripts and don't erupt so frequently. The end of the month will be the decisive moment, and at the beginning of October, there will be double the monthly votes. If you work so hard now, will you be able to do it at that time? Chapter 390. Today's Outbreak. The second chapter has arrived. The third and fourth chapters are in the evening. I'm going to eat first. I suddenly found my stomach sticking to my spine. Jun Moxie was leisurely drinking the wine. He was inhaling the wine's mist. He had finally understood the Xian beasts' hierarchy. The so-called hierarchy of Xian beasts was much more detailed and rigorous than the hierarchy of human Xian beasts. A Xian beast at the peak of the 9th level had to go one step further to become a Xian beast king. Or, it could be said that they were qualified to challenge a Xian beast king. That was transformation. Some Xian beasts at the peak of the 9th level could transform into a human, while others couldn't. After the 9th level, there was the 10th level. This was the most difficult level for a Xian beast to advance. A Xian beast at the peak of the 9th level could automatically become a Xian beast king as long as it could transform into a human. However, it was only after it had crossed the 10th level that it could be considered a genuine Xian beast king. A genuine Xian beast king. It wasn't just a king of a single race. And Jun Moxie had helped Bear Mountain and Long Crane to break through this hurdle. Of course, there were still a few more hurdles to go up. But Long Crane had said that no Xian beast had ever reached that level except for the Holy Emperor. So, he hadn't mentioned it. Jun Moxie was holding a special wine cup. He pondered and said, "In other words, both of you are level 10 Xian beasts? And the 4 of them have already reached the peak of the 9th level?" The 6 Beast Kings nodded. "If that's the case, then wait for the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit to be refined. Then, you should be able to advance to the next level." Jun Moxie said with some uncertainty. Da Xiao was sure that the elixir he was going to refine would be very effective. But, he hadn't personally tested it. So, he didn't know to what extent it would be effective. The 6 Beast Kings' eyes lit up, and their eyes burst with light. Advance to the next level. I've just advanced to the next level. So, what if I advance to the next level in 3 years? My God! This speed is like flying. The previous Xian Beast Kings of Tian Fa have never advanced so fast. 3 years might not be a short period of time for humans, but for Xian beasts with long lifespans, it was only a short period of time. One had to know that it was easy to advance a level, but the difference of one level was a long life force. For a moment, the 6 Beast Kings were breathing heavily. Their eyes were burning with passion. A moment of silence. Long Crane finally asked impatiently, Senior Feng, you want to refine that divine pill. Do you still lack a few ingredients? Everyone pricked up their ears as soon as he said this. Sigh. That's true, and it's not just one. Jun Moxie let out a long sigh and suddenly opened his eyes. How do you know how many medicinal herbs are missing? Long Crane chuckled and said, I'm just guessing. Haha, I'm afraid that you'll be able to take out the spirit pill if you've already gathered the necessary ingredients. But you'll have to wait for 3 years with your ability. So, it's obvious that you're looking for the necessary ingredients. You'll need to gather them before you can start refining the spirit pill. Looking at the time limit, I'm afraid that the other medicinal ingredients that Senior needs are not ordinary. That's right. Crane King is indeed the Crane King. Your mind is very meticulous. Jun Moxie chuckled. His tone was a little hesitant and uncertain as he said, That's right. How can the spirit pill that I want to refine be ordinary? The 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit is rare, but it is only a catalyst. The rest of the spirit herbs still need to be gathered in large quantities. Once they have gathered to a certain extent, the medicinal properties will be extracted, and the myriad of spirit herbs will be transformed into tangible objects. Then, the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit will be used to refine the peerless spirit pill that I want to refine. Jun Moxie's tone was heavy as he spoke slowly. The 6 Beast Kings held their breaths and listened attentively. This heaven-defying spirit pill has a miraculous effect. One pill can increase an ordinary person's lifespan by at least 100 years. If a Xian cultivator were to take this pill, they would be able to advance from the Earth Xian level to the second level of the Xian level in a few short months. In fact, they might even become stronger. Moreover, they wouldn't suffer from qi deviation during this process, nor would their spiritual energy be too violent. This is because the medicinal properties of the elixir will slowly spread along with the improvement of the user's cultivation. It can be said that there is no danger. In fact, it can be said to be a divine medicine that seizes the fortune of the heaven and earth. The sound of inhaling resounded in unison. The 12 eyes of the 6 Beast Kings opened wide like bronze bells. Their bodies were trembling with excitement. From an Earth Xian to the second level of the Xian level? 100 years of lifespan? There is no danger? Oh my God! What kind of spirit pill is this? It's driving me crazy. It's something I've been dreaming of. How many elixirs are we still lacking? Let's all think of a way. It'll be much faster than Senior collecting them by yourself. I don't mean anything by it. Senior's magical powers are vast, but you're only one person. We don't have Senior's magical powers. But we can take advantage of the fact that we have more people. So we should be able to do our best. Bear Mountain's big and round eyes were emitting a green luster like a wolf's. He was speaking in a genteel manner. Yes. Our Tian Fa forest occupies a vast area. There are many heavenly treasures here. I believe that we can help Senior gather the medicinal ingredients as soon as possible. The other 5 Beast Kings were very enthusiastic. Some of them were licking their mouths as they spoke. They looked like they were gluttonous. This is also good. Since everyone is willing to help, it will save me the time of looking for it myself. This is indeed very helpful. Jun Mo muttered to himself for a long time. Then, he finally agreed. All the beast kings beamed with joy. The medicinal ingredients that I lack are dragon's beard grass, phoenix's tail flower, 9-knot lotus, continuous root, tricolor ganoderma, rainbow lotus root. Jun Moxie didn't stand on ceremony. He recited a long list. Then, he took a deep breath and continued. 1,000-year ginseng, white cinnabar fruit, 9 nether grass, 9 mysterious root, etc. The more the better. The 6 Xian beast kings were left dumbstruck. The Eagle King was the most quick-witted of them all. He had torn off a large piece of tree bark and used it as a piece of paper. Then, he used his sharp nails as a pen and started to write from memory. Jun Mo's wrist was almost sore when he finished reading. After that, Jun Mo explained to them one by one what these herbs looked like, what kind of environment they grew in, how to harvest them, etc. All the beast kings held their breaths and listened carefully, afraid that they would miss out on the slightest detail. This was an important matter that concerned their advancement, so they could not be careless. Of course, I believe that it is impossible to collect so many precious medicinal ingredients in one go even with the power of Tian Fa. You can collect as many as you can. You can send people to the Jun family in Tianxiang City after you have collected a bat. Then, you can slowly prepare the next bat. I will go there every once in a while. Jun Moxie laughed and said, in that case, you will be responsible for the collection of Tian Fa's elixirs. And I will go to the extreme north in these 3 years to collect the elixirs there. We can definitely succeed in one go if we work on both sides. Jun Moxie thought that he would have to go to the extreme north soon after this promotion. So, he might as well do a few things at the same time, including picking the elixirs. The third uncle waited in a daze. There was a beautiful woman on the snowy peak looking up at him. 10 years. How many 10 years could one have in a person's life? How many 10 years could one's lover wait? When their hair turned white like frost, and they became old and clumsy. Even if they reunited, what could they do? Apart from this matter, the Dongfang family also had another vow, sword edge collapsing the snowy mountain. Jun Moxie very much wanted to see the spectacular scene of the snowy mountain collapsing. Jun Moxie had long been prepared to personally create this spectacle. These things should be done sooner rather than later. Therefore, Jun Moxie had been preparing for this. After the Tian Fa forest, the trip to the Silver Blizzard City had been put on the agenda. Even though his strength was still lacking, however, this kid's heart could not be said to be not black. When the Beast Kings had asked, he had directly listed out all the medicinal ingredients that he had obtained from the Hongjun Pagoda with great difficulty. Even if the 6 Beast Kings wanted to collect all these ingredients, they might not be able to do so even if they spent their entire lives. Jun Moxie's main purpose in coming to Tian Fa this time was to collect some heavenly treasures. He had collected a lot of them the last time, but it was still far from enough for his needs. This time, Long Crane and the others had taken the initiative to bring it up. For Jun Moxie, this was exactly what he wanted. Therefore, he straightforwardly and bluntly listed out all the elixirs that he needed. This way, it would save him a lot of effort. There were so many medicinal ingredients. Moreover, they were all heavenly treasures that could only grow in the heaven and earth spiritual chi. If he were to rely on himself to collect them, he reckoned that he wouldn't be able to collect them even in 8 lifetimes. Moreover, he had made use of the Beast Kings this time. But they wouldn't be at a disadvantage as long as everyone had a share when the pills were refined. So, he believed that it would be worth it for them. In fact, it might even be worth it. Therefore, Jun Moxie didn't feel guilty at all. In fact, it could be said that he had a clear conscience. The Beast Kings didn't have any misgivings about Jun Moxie's request. So, they solemnly vowed to agree. Then, they decided that they would put all their efforts into finding these elixirs even if they had to put all their other matters on hold. After all, this was related to the advancement of the Beast Kings. So, how could they not be attentive? Moreover, Lei Bao Yu and the others had profaned the dignity of Tian Fa. That was enough to ignite the hearts of the Beast Kings. They had sought to advance but couldn't in the past. But they could advance now. The four great Beast Kings were living examples in front of them. Moreover, they had finally found an effective way to contact this peerless expert, the Jun family of Tianxiang City. Well, they were even more confident now that they had such a goal. In fact, the Beast Kings were already calculating in their hearts. Should I volunteer to personally escort the elixirs to Tianxiang City when the first batch of elixirs is almost complete? Maybe I can get a share of the loot first. All the Beast Kings had this idea in their minds for a moment, and their complexions became somewhat strange. They looked at their brothers and felt that they wouldn't give up such an opportunity. It seemed that internal strife would be unavoidable when the time came. Chapter 391. Floating in the air, Jun Moxie's mood was exceptionally good, and he almost wanted to sing a song. He didn't expect that everything would go so smoothly. What he didn't know was that, if it had been anyone else, even if they had the same conditions, they wouldn't have been able to do the same. The key was the Hongjun Pagoda. The Hongjun Pagoda's aura made even these Beast Kings feel a sense of familiarity from the bottom of their hearts. At the very least, their first impression of it was the strongest, and they inexplicably developed a very good impression of it. Wouldn't it be logical for them to do anything? Looking at the surrounding situation, Jun Moxie wanted to find the right direction to leave quickly. He looked around and suddenly exclaimed in surprise. This place wasn't far from the place where he had met the little beast last time. It was almost not far from the courtyard wall formed by a row of towering trees. The scenery here couldn't help but evoke Jun Moxie's good impression from the last time. With a whoosh, he rushed over. Hee, if I could have caught that extremely adorable little fellow and brought him back to my bosom, how fun would that have been? Its soft flesh would have been so comfortable to pinch, especially that little butt. I wouldn't get tired of pinching it 100 times, it would have been so refreshing. It had to be said that Jun Dashao's way of thinking was quite vile. When other people saw cute little animals, they couldn't wait to take good care of them. Take Little White for example, the little girl couldn't wait to love him, but he didn't care about it at all. That little fellow from last time was extremely adorable, and this guy's way of looking after him was also different from ordinary people. He only thought of grabbing it back and pinching its butt for no reason. What a really bad taste. Da Xiao excitedly entered the small valley, hoping to reunite with the little beast after a long time. His eyes were filled with the familiar colors, and the fragrance assailed his nostrils. However, it was empty inside, and not the slightest sound could be heard. Jun Moxie took 2 steps forward. The valley was filled with silence, and he could only hear the soft rustling of his own footsteps. It was obviously full of vitality, but it was as silent as a dead zone. The scenery inside the valley formed an unusually sharp contrast with this silence. This kind of comparison made people feel extremely strange. Jun Moxie carefully searched around again, but found nothing. He walked to the stone room and saw that the black robe from that day was still quietly spread on the ground. Apart from that, there was nothing else. As for that adorable little beast, it was nowhere to be seen. Jun Mo Xie didn't give up and went out to search with his spirit sense. What if the little guy had gone out to look for food? Jun Mo Xie's spiritual sense had become much stronger since he had entered the 3rd level of the art of unlocking the heavens' fortune. In fact, it was a far cry from what it had been before. Originally, he could only search within a radius of a few dozen feet, but now it had expanded to a distance. The strength of the eldest young master's divine sense had already reached the level of a supreme being. However, this wasn't the result of the Hongjun Pagoda's spiritual sense. Instead, it was the result of Jun Mosie's Sky Xian's spiritual sense. Who would have believed that a mere initial level Tian Xian could have such a powerful divine sense? How could a mere initial level Tian Xian have such a powerful divine sense? Jun Moxie's thoughts followed the expansion of his divine sense. He slowly examined his surroundings bit by bit. However, they didn't find any clues at all. It was still silent, a deathly silence. How can this be? Although the last time I came here, it was also very peaceful. But now, it's deathly silent like a ghost town. How can I not be suspicious? This is the core of the Tian Fa forest. Even the ordinary high-level Xian beasts don't dare to stay here. Could it be that even the peak level 9 Xian beasts don't dare to stay here? Through his previous communication with the 6 Xian beast kings, Dashao unexpectedly found out that there were many other peak level 9 Xian beasts in the Tian Fa forest besides the 6 Xian beast kings. It's just that they haven't succeeded in transforming. The deathly stillness in front of me shouldn't be happening, right? Jun Moxie made up his mind. He launched his divine sense to the fullest. Like an invisible arrow, he shot into the depths of the forest. Just as Jun Moxie exerted his full strength and expanded the radius of his divine sense to more than 200 feet, he discovered the sounds of Xian beasts' activities in the east, west, and north. Only the south was still deathly silent. It seemed that the source of this strange phenomenon was in the south. Jun Moxie withdrew his divine sense from the other 3 directions. He narrowed the search area and focused on the south. He was convinced that there must be something fishy about such a strange phenomenon happening in a place like the Tian Fa forest. Suddenly, his divine sense, which had always been successful in every endeavor, suddenly seemed to have bumped into an abnormally viscous place. Even with the young master's powerful divine sense, he was unexpectedly powerless to break through and advance. In fact, he couldn't even retreat. This feeling was like an insect flying in the air had bumped into a spider's web. Jun Moxie was shocked. He hastily withdrew his divine sense with all his strength. At this moment, a powerful divine sense suddenly came head-on. It fiercely collided with Jun Moxie's divine sense. Boom! Jun Moxie felt that his divine sense, which was not weak at all, had no room to resist this powerful divine sense that had suddenly appeared. There was a roar in his head. In a split second, he felt dizzy and fell to the ground. His eyes, ears, mouth, and nose involuntarily overflowed with fine blood. This was because Dashao's current physical body had reached a rather tyrannical level. If it was his physical body from a few days ago, he would have been seriously injured under the backlash of such a divine sense collision. Jun Moxie's current divine sense had already reached the valiant level of a supreme master. He didn't expect that under the pressure of the powerful divine sense opposite him, he could not even withstand a single blow and was defeated like a landslide. Although the other party was suspected to have launched a sneak attack, the other party's powerful divine sense was still unquestionable. The person who possessed such a powerful divine sense definitely had a cultivation above the supreme master level. Even if this person's strength was not as strong as Venerable Mei's, he was more or less an expert of the same level. Could it be that there was such an expert hidden in the Tian Fa forest? In that case, the foundation of the Tian Fa forest was too strong. Previously, he was a little worried that the Tian Fa forest would be at a disadvantage in the conflict between the big foreign lands a few years later. This was also one of the main reasons why Jun Moxie did his best to help the few major beast kings break through their bottlenecks and heal their injuries. Dashao really liked the simplicity and peacefulness of the few major beast kings. In order to let them have enough ability to protect themselves, he naturally had to improve their strength. However, if Tian Fa had hidden another super expert, then the significance of helping the few major beast kings wouldn't be as great as it was originally. Perhaps the significance to the few major beast kings wouldn't change, but the significance to the future of the entire Tian Fa forest would be a completely different matter. In the face of such a majestic and terrifying divine sense, Jun Moxie couldn't help but turn pale with fright even with his calmness and steadiness. This was because the impact hadn't ended yet. His own divine sense had completely retreated. However, the other party's divine sense was relentlessly chasing after him. It seemed as if it wouldn't stop until Dashao was destroyed. Jun Moxie's thoughts turned at lightning speed. He forcefully endured the pain in his mind, and barely used the remaining bit of clarity in his heart to activate the powerful aura of the Hong Jun Pagoda's divine sense. It was like a sharp sword that could cut through the blue dome of heaven, and went head-on against the divine sense that was chasing after him. The power of the Hong Jun Pagoda's divine sense was naturally not something that Dashao's own divine sense could compare to. It was far more extraordinary. This desperate counterattack easily intercepted the terrifying divine sense that was chasing after him, and launched another wave of intense battle. The other party's divine sense was also very intelligent. In a flash, it had already determined that the second wave of divine sense was far more powerful than its own. Both sides retreated as soon as the two sides collided. Jun Moxie's damaged divine sense was finally withdrawn from the sticky area with the help of the Hong Jun Pagoda, and returned to his body. Under the protection of the Hong Jun Pagoda's divine sense, it slowly returned. On the other side, an extremely tragic howl suddenly rang out from the distant south. It was obvious that this person's cultivation was extremely high, and his reaction speed was also very fast. However, he was still not a match for this kind of ancient divine object under the powerful counterattack of the Hong Jun Pagoda. In addition, he had originally held the upper hand, and had been caught off guard. Even during the second round of battle, his reaction speed was still very fast. He immediately retreated the moment he saw that he was no match for the other party. However, he still couldn't avoid suffering heavy injuries. The volume of this howl was extremely low, but it was extremely penetrating. The leaves on the flowering tree beside Jun Moxie also rustled and fell, and the sound spread far away. Jun Moxie's heart had finally returned to normal after his divine sense returned to his body. The feeling of powerlessness in his body had also disappeared. Jun Moxie wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were like a lonely wolf on a cold winter's night. He fiercely looked towards the south. There was another super strong expert there. There was a place over there that even the invisible and intangible divine sense couldn't penetrate. What was that place? What kind of person was there? Jun Moxie jumped up and used the yin-yang escape technique with all his strength. He instantly crossed the distance between the two places with a frightening speed of 1,000 miles per step, and disappeared on the spot. I must go and experience such a strange place for myself. I've already set my eyes on the Tian Fa forest. I want to make this place my future home. So, how can I not be aware of the mysterious phenomenon of such a strange existence, as well as the existence of that powerful person? That person and that place are definitely a huge hidden danger. What appeared in front of Jun Moxie was a strange, milky, white fog. It was strange to say that this fog was strange. Before turning around the mountain, there was no sign of its existence at all. Even when observing from the sky, there was no sign of its existence. But after turning around, it covered the sky and covered the earth. As far as the eye could see, there was only this kind of white fog, boundless, vast, and boundless. This kind of white fog was extremely strange. It was different from the ordinary fog, and it wasn't the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It was so thick that it seemed to be a real substance. In the white fog, one couldn't even see their fingers if they stretched out their hands. That feeling was like a real substance. Although it seemed soft and fragile, it was actually extremely tough. There was another strange thing about this white fog. Although the divine sense couldn't penetrate it, the physical body could. Jun Mosie gave it a try and stretched his arm in. He only felt that it was empty without any obstruction. It was very clear that there was an extremely vast space inside. But when Jun Moxie tried to use his divine sense to penetrate the white fog, he felt that the previous sticky feeling appeared again. It was as if he had fallen into a thick liquid. He couldn't move forward at all. In front of the divine sense, the white fog was extremely tough. It was like using one's finger to hold up a balloon. With a little bit of force, the balloon could sink in, but it wouldn't burst. That was the feeling that Jun Moxie felt when he released his divine sense. It was really strange. It was the first time that he found a strange place where his body could enter, but his divine sense couldn't. It seemed that the mysterious part of the Tian Fa forest still existed. Chapter 392. Jun Mosie had no choice but to go in. And that was because he was about to withdraw when he discovered a vine at the edge of the white mist. It had several leaves attached to it. The leaves were heptagonal in shape and were as red as blood. Moreover, the veins of the leaves were clearly visible. In fact, it seemed as if they were about to bulge out of the surface of the leaf. The vine was unusually slender and snow-white in color. At first glance, it seemed very soft. However, upon touching it, one would realize that this vine was as hard as steel. The 9 xian root. This was the 9 xian root vine leaf that he had been searching for. Jun Moxie was overjoyed. Grandpa Jun had consumed the last ingredient required for the advancement of the Xian Dan. He didn't expect to see it here. How could Jun Moxie let it go? Even if there were dangers inside, Jun Moxie must obtain the 9 xian root. The 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit certainly had the same effect. However, it was far beyond his reach. Not to mention the fact that most of the ingredients were still missing, Dashao was unable to refine it with his current cultivation level. He simply couldn't afford to wait any longer. Besides, after taking the Xiandan, he could still refine the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit again. That was equivalent to advancing twice. If he were to use the 1,000 evils and 10,000 poisons fruit to refine the spirit pill, then the original recipe would no longer have any effect. Unexpectedly, Jun Mosie, whom she had yearned for even in her dreams, had launched the yin-yang escape in high spirits. However, he was disappointed once again. The yin-yang escape art, which had been unstoppable in the past, and the invincible creation divine ability, had actually encountered an obstacle here. He could go left or right, but once he came into contact with the white fog, he would feel as if he had fallen into a swamp. Every step forward would consume a huge amount of spiritual energy. Now that he was trapped, Jun Moxie was experiencing this feeling. This was obviously a mountain of cotton that looked like a floating mountain. However, after entering, he could not see anything except for the shining white cotton. Under such circumstances, his eyes had become mere decorations. A single color could actually form such a strange concealment effect. The Tian Fa forest actually had such a wonderful place. Jun Moxie was completely astonished. Of course, he didn't dare to rashly cancel the yin-yang escape and directly use his physical strength to enter. If that was the case, wouldn't he become a living target for the hidden experts inside? He didn't even know that he had been tricked to death. Although activating the yin-yang escape consumed a lot of spiritual qi, it could ensure that he was completely invisible. Even if the person inside had the ability to see through heaven and earth, he would absolutely not be able to see him. This was where his greatest advantage lay. How could the creation divine ability be ordinary? Jun Moxie was trapped in this wonderful environment. His hand was gently moving along the rattan of the 9 profound root, and he was slowly advancing inside, as if he was sleepwalking. He wasn't worried in the slightest because he'd already tested it. Even though it wasn't easy to move forward, it was extremely easy to retreat and escape. He only needed a thought to get out. Therefore, his safety was still guaranteed. June Moxie would only choose to move forward in such a strange place once his safety was guaranteed. He wouldn't step in if there was even a little danger. This was the cautiousness of the king of assassins. However, June Moxie wouldn't return so easily. That was because he was determined to obtain the 9 Xian root. June Moxie's body had disappeared from that valley. The 6 Xian beast kings were drinking wine and celebrating several kilometers away. But they had also clearly heard this muffled and miserable howl from the south. Everyone was startled. Then, it seemed as if they had thought of something at the same time. And they jumped up as if their butts were on fire. That's the direction of the Tian Fa cave. Long Crane's voice was filled with panic and fear. It's the real Tian Fa cave. Bear Mountain and the other 4 Xian beast kings' complexions turned pale. They didn't dare to be the slightest bit negligent, and rushed towards that direction with all their strength. I don't know if it's because of that senior Feng from a while ago. We had been drinking wine a while ago. Moreover, he was in a hurry to leave. So, we forgot to remind him that he can't go there. Tiger King Earthcracker was somewhat anxious. Beads of sweat had started to appear on his forehead. He asked in an urgent voice as he sped away. It's hard to say. Eagle King's Sky Splitter's face turned even darker. His eagle eyes were looking at the dark curtain of night ahead. Who would dare to barge into the Tian Fa forest apart from that senior Feng? Would you dare? Ho Chi's complexion was very anxious. He was somewhat impatient as he spoke up. Let's hurry over. We must ask for leniency for him to leave if it's because of that senior Feng. This Monkey King had just received a great favor. So, how could he allow his benefactor to have an accident in his territory? Bear Mountain snorted and said, It's still too early to say anything. Who will have the upper hand? It's hard to say who will plead for leniency for whom. But I hope that old bear's face is big enough. It could be seen from these words that Bear Mountain's confidence in this mysterious expert had reached an unparalleled level. Of course, it wasn't clear whether Old Bear's face was big enough or not. But his face was certainly thick enough. In fact, he might not be number 1 in the world. But he would at least be peerless. Shut up! What time is this? Let's get there first. Long Crane turned his head and shouted. He felt that running on the ground was too slow. So, he suddenly jumped up with a schwa sound. Then, he somersaulted in midair, and reverted to his original form. He had transformed into a majestic and beautiful white crane. Then, he flapped his wings and flew over with a schwa sound. Bear Mountain saw him jump up and understood his intention. So, he also jumped up. In fact, he jumped even higher than Long Crane. He was waiting for Long Crane to return to his original form. Then, he would land on the ground and the two of them would go together. The 2 Beast Kings had cooperated in this manner for decades, so they were very familiar with each other. However, they had miscalculated this time. Long Crane was very impatient this time. So, he somersaulted in midair, and returned to his original form. Bear Mountain saw that he had finally returned to his original form. So, he hastily withdrew his energy and descended. But Long Crane suddenly dashed out with a schwa sound as he was descending. I've completely screwed up! There was a loud bang and Bear Mountain's burly body, which weighed several hundred kilograms, fell down from midair. Then, he landed heavily on the ground and created a huge crater. However, he had been caught unprepared. So, he had been caught off guard. So, he hadn't been injured because of his thick skin. But there wasn't a single part of his body that didn't hurt. So, Bear King sat on the ground and started cursing. The other Beast Kings were in no mood to care about him. So, they swept past him. The Eagle King was the kindest of them all. He returned to his original form behind Bear Mountain, and grabbed his clothes with his mouth. Then, he soared into the sky, and threw Bear Mountain onto his back. His speed didn't slow down, and he shot towards the south like a black arrow. The 6 Beast Kings had high cultivation, so they arrived at the forbidden area within a few breaths' time. They looked at the thick white fog in front of them. It seemed as if it hadn't made any sound since ancient times. The 6 Beast Kings carefully examined their surroundings, but they didn't find any traces of anyone coming here. So they were relieved. What they didn't know was that June Moxie had used the yin-yang escape to come here, so how could he have left any traces? It would be a real miracle if such a creation divine art would leave any traces behind. It seems like no one has come. It's a good thing that no one has come. Long Crane heaved a sigh of relief and said, "An ordinary person can't enter the forbidden area, so it should be fine. It's better to ask." Just now, the sound that came out from the forbidden area was extremely heart-wrenching, Bucho Sure said worriedly. "We all know that if it wasn't for extreme pain, one would definitely not make that kind of sound." Ho Chi objected. "Sometimes, the pain that one needs to experience during a breakthrough in cultivation is also extremely difficult to endure. Perhaps that's why the sound just now came out. Although this kind of sound is not common in the Tian Fa forest, it is not rare either. Is there a need to make such a fuss?" "You're right. It's common for high-level Xian beasts to make such a sound when they practice. But, have you ever heard of such a sound coming from the forbidden area?" Bucho Sure retorted sarcastically. Long Crane thought for a moment. Then, he finally mustered his strength and asked, "The current Crane King of Tian Fa, Long Crane, has come to pay his respects. Does the Senior of the Holy Land have any instructions for me?" His deep and resounding voice was transmitted into the white fog. A long while passed. Then, an angry voice was heard from the white fog. "Pay your respects! Hurry up and get the hell out of my grandma!" The 6 Beast Kings looked at each other in amazement. They stared at each other for a while. Then, they dejectedly returned the way they had come. The 6 of them were very unlucky. The person inside had been caught off guard by June Moxie using the Hong June Pagoda's enormous spiritual sense. So, they had suffered a huge defeat. So, they were lamenting the fact that their heroes were past their prime. So, they were extremely anxious. But, the 6 Beast Kings had chosen this time to pay their respects. The 6 monarchs didn't dare to complain in the slightest, even though they had just eaten a hot fart. Instead, they left faster than anything else, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. A voice was heard from the thick fog after a while. "Damn it! I forgot to ask them if anyone had come in. What kind of guy is so troublesome? His spiritual sense is so powerful that it's terrifying. I'm afraid that we would have died if we hadn't pulled back in time." June Moxie was operating the yin-yang escape with all his strength, so it was very difficult for him to pass through the thick fog. He couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. It seems that the guy inside isn't very smart. How can a human's strength or a beast's strength contend against the Hong June Pagoda's spiritual sense? But that guy was able to preserve his life under the full force of the Hong June Pagoda's counterattack. In fact, he didn't even sustain any serious injuries. So, that's very impressive. He followed the 9 Xian vines step by step, and he was extremely cautious with each step. June Moxie didn't believe that the person inside was living in such a sticky environment. That person would have died. Moreover, he had been leading the 9 Xian vine all the way here. But he hadn't bumped into any trees or vegetation. This is abnormal. The 9 Xian vine exists in this place. So, how can there be no other plants and vegetation? This doesn't make any sense. June Moxie didn't know how far he had gone. But he finally felt that the white fog in front of him had become thinner. So, his spirits rose, and he advanced in that direction with all his strength. June Moxie suddenly felt his entire body loosen up. He had finally passed through the thick white fog. He looked around and saw that he was in an open space. The white fog was still thick all around him. He couldn't see the sky or the sun. He couldn't see anything to his left or right. As far as he could see, he could only see a radius of a few hundred feet. Apart from that, there was nothing else but the thick white fog that seemed to stretch on endlessly. There was a clump of trees not far in front of him, and there seemed to be a hillside in the distance. But it was shrouded by the white fog. He could clearly see the faint white fog in the midst of the flowers, grass, and trees. The white fog was thinner in the densely forested areas, and the white fog was thicker in the sparsely forested areas. June Moxie finally saw the light. He still didn't know what this white fog was, but he knew one thing. The strange white fog would be less in the lush forested areas. On the contrary, it would be more in the densely forested areas. June Moxie heaved a sigh as he looked at the boundless white fog. It seems like there aren't many trees and flowers in this place. It's no wonder that the 9-chien root, such an eccentric and poisonous plant, can grow in this place. The 9-chien root's main body was growing and spreading along a thick pine tree. June Moxie discovered that the trees in the middle of the white fog weren't very tall. The tallest tree was only a dozen or so meters tall, but each of them was very thick. The dense white fog in the sky had probably restricted the growth of the trees, so they could only grow horizontally. However, June Moxie didn't understand one thing. There was no sunlight in this place, so how could the trees survive? Not to mention that they had been growing for thousands of years. June Moxie heaved a sigh. He didn't want to think about these difficult questions anymore. The Tian Fa forest was full of mysteries, and these mysteries weren't something that he could unravel with his current strength. The reason why the yin-yang escape was so difficult to move forward in this place was probably because his skill hadn't reached the required level yet. But he would definitely unravel these mysteries one day, and the Tian Fa forest would have completely accepted him at that time. But he didn't want to think about these forbidden areas at the moment. He just needed to dig out the 9-chien root. June Moxie was about to move, but he heard a soft sound coming from the forest. It sounded like a snort from an animal. June Moxie looked in the direction of the sound. A huge golden-furred bear slowly stood up from the shroud of the white fog. Then it stretched its huge waist. It was a 9th-grade peak-level chien beast. June Moxie didn't want to complicate things, so he dived into the ground and dug out the 9-chien root. The unique fragrance of the 9-chien root became even clearer in the soil. June Moxie held it in his hands. He was overjoyed. The milky white 9-chien root was sparkling and translucent like jade in his hands. The age of the 9-chien root was very strict. It was black when it was born. After 10 years it would turn brown. After 100 years it would turn yellow. After 1,000 years it would turn red. Only the 9-chien root that had grown for more than 10,000 years would turn milky white. This was the best quality 9-chien root. June Moxie hadn't expected to find such a big surprise in this place. The size of this 9-chien root wasn't small. It could be used to concoct medicine for Grandpa June. However, most of it could still be used to concoct various divine pills. June Moxie's mind moved. He put the 9-chien root into the Hong June pagoda. He was so happy that he forgot himself. He let out a long laugh, and whistling sounds came from all directions. It turned out that there was more than one level 9-chien beast in this place. Furthermore, from the scanning of his spiritual sense, June Moxie discovered that there were actually quite a few spiritual senses similar to the one he'd clashed with earlier. June Moxie's body couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Oh my God! Why are there so many powerful beings hidden in this place? However, he didn't dare to delay any longer. So he rushed out with a whooshing sound. It took a lot of effort to get in, but it was easy to get out. In fact, it only took him a moment to escape from the range of the white fog. He looked at the strange white fog from afar. June Moxie's mouth revealed a smile. He then muttered, "I will be back." Definitely. There was a huge rock in front of him. A few large characters were engraved on it. And June Moxie finally understood what this place was. Tian Fa Cave. This is one of the most mysterious places in the world. Tian Fa Cave. Not bad. Not bad. It's worthy of being called a legendary mysterious place. June Moxie laughed in his heart. His body was like a light breeze as he welcomed the first glimmer of dawn in the sky. Then, he swaggered off towards Tiannan City. It was truly a bountiful harvest. Moreover, it was an unexpected bountiful harvest. This bountiful harvest made June Moxie extremely satisfied. Not only did June Moxie prepare all the medicinal ingredients for the xiandan for Grandpa June, he had also distributed all the medicinal ingredients needed for the concoction of the xiandan. With the richness of the medicinal ingredients in Tian Fa Forest, after thousands of years of accumulation, what kind of heaven and earth elixirs could not be found there? Basically, with the exception of some heaven and earth elixirs that could only grow in special environments, Tian Fa Forest could be found everywhere. How much effort would this save him? Moreover, he had a good relationship with the Beast Kings of Tian Fa. They were practically wearing the same pair of pants. This was an extremely powerful help. The current June Mo Xie still looked like the debauchee he had been half a year ago, but June Mo Xie's hidden and visible foundation had already reached an astonishing level. The June family's military power in Tianxiang City could not be ignored. They had a large foundation among the people. Hai Chen-feng and Song Shang had been helping June Moxie take care of the underground gangs in the capital. Everything was in order. At least, they knew all the movements in the capital like the back of their hands. In terms of business, the genius businessman, Tang Yuan, was haggling over the smallest details. The aristocratic hall of the capital was like a money-making tree. Moreover, it was the kind of money-making tree that shook several times a day. In terms of personal strength, Jun Zhantian was at the peak of Tianxian. Jun Wui was at the intermediate level of Tianxian. June Moxie was at the primary level of Tianxian. And all three of them were about to be promoted. Especially Jun Zhantian and Jun Wui. In June Moxie's plan, they were already real Shen Xian experts. In terms of external help, one of the 8 great masters, Solitary Eagle, was now a guest at the June family. He was also June Moxie's grandmother. The Dongfang family's oath was about to be broken by June Moxie. At that time, it would be another world-shaking assassin force. Just his 3 uncles were already Shen Xian. Even if the Dongfang family's strength was inferior, how could it be? In the distant Tian Fa forest, there were still 6 Xian beast kings working hard to prepare elixirs for him. It could be said that as long as June Moxie used his mysterious identity, he could mobilize the peak level 9 Xian beasts and Xian beast kings in the Tian Fa forest to help him in battle. This was not an impossible thing. Moreover, this was what these guys were looking for. June Mo Xie had invented a mysterious expert, and that was the most awesome of them all. Who in the world didn't know that the June family had such an awesome and peerless master behind them? This invisible deterrent was the June family's greatest reliance at the moment. Who in the world would dare to compete with the June family because of this? Didn't they see that the second great master, Li Ju Tian, had turned into ashes? Moreover, the Bailey family's genius, Bailey Luoyun, was waiting in the southern heaven city. Recruiting Bailey Luoyun was also related to June Moxie's big plan. It could be said that the current June Mo Xie, even in this world of mortals, already possessed a decisive power. Chapter 393. In Tiannan City. After June Moxie left Guan Qinghan's tent, the exhausted Guan Qinghan closed her eyes and lay on her bed. Because Da Xiao was by her side, her spirit was always very tense and her heart was not distracted. How could she care about other things? As soon as Da Xiao left, her cold mind instantly slackened. All the fatigue and pain attacked her at the same time. Only then did she feel that there was no part of her body that was not in pain. Even a very subtle movement would cause abnormally severe pain. It's all that damn enemy's doing, how could he be so painful? Guan Qinghan's entire body felt weak. She didn't even feel like moving her little finger. 2 streams of tears streamed down her cheeks. It wasn't because she regretted helping the young master to expel the effects of the drug. Nor was it because she resented June Emocia. Instead, it was because she was in too much pain. She was the only person in this place. So, her tears were the only way to alleviate this pain. There was no doubt that in the previous sudden storm, although Guan Qinghan had been passively bearing it and had long been mentally prepared, she still inevitably exhausted every bit of her physical strength and profound strength. Now, she felt that from her bones to her muscles, there was no place in her body that could release any strength. Guan Qinghan felt a little surprised that her eyeballs could still move. The 2 lines of clear tears were almost the only reaction she could make. In fact, when she used up the last of her strength to stand up in June Moxie's tent and put on her clothes in order to protect her dignity and pride, she was already like this. However, she didn't want to show her weakness in front of June Moxie. She kept telling herself that this was a mistake. In order to save him, in order to save the only descendant of the 3rd generation of the June family, she had no other choice. After this incident, there would be no trace of the spring dream. They would have nothing to do with each other, and there would be no need to do so. Although she wanted to, she couldn't convince herself. You are my woman. This is the truth. June Emocie's domineering face and unquestionable tone when he'd said those words had appeared in front of her eyes over and over again like a dream. She'd then replayed it over and over again. Once everything settles down, I'll marry you. It was still that man's voice. Was it a promise? Was it a wish? Wasn't that a mistake? Really? But why am I so afraid? But in my heart, why is there still a trace of shyness and happiness? Even if I did it to save the only descendant of the 3rd generation of the June family, why didn't I die to apologize to the world? Why didn't I use my life to protect the reputation of the 2 families? I didn't even think of doing so. Why? Am I actually a shameless woman? Why? Lying quietly on the bed, Guan Qinghan's thoughts were like a tide, surging endlessly, as if she had completely forgotten about the discomfort in her body. His face suddenly turned red, then white, and then red again, all the way to his neck, alternating back and forth. 2 lines of tears slowly flowed down from the corners of her eyes, soaking her satin-like black hair. But this time, it wasn't because of the pain. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. After an unknown amount of time, it seemed as if someone was talking outside, but Guan Qinghan didn't care. At this time, how could she be in the mood to care about such trivial matters? But, even if you weren't in the mood to care, things would still come to bother you. The curtain of the tent was lifted, and a small head poked its head inside. It looked around furtively and then tiptoed inside. Elder Sister Guan, are you all right? Duguxiao's face was full of shame and loss. She looked at Guan Qinghan with tearful eyes, and then carefully sat on the edge of the bed. The little girl's figure had visibly thinned out in the middle of the night. The little girl was born in one of the largest families in the entire Tian Empire. But the younger generation of this huge family were all boys except for her. So, Duguxiao was the only red dot in the middle of the green. So, the amount of love and care she received was unimaginable. In this era, men and women were the most guarded against each other. Even an ordinary girl from an ordinary family would have to abide by the rules before she was married. She would have to be strictly guarded for fear that the slightest bit of bad news would spread. So, how could a super family like the Dugu family be able to do that? Not to mention others, even the servants in the family had to be vigilant at all times. If anyone dared to say something that shouldn't be said in front of the Madam and Miss, it would be an unforgivable crime. There was an old master, 3 great generals, 7 ruthless young masters, and more than 20 young madams. The old lady. Which one of them couldn't decide the life and death of the servants? If some indecent things were to be spread to the little princess' ears, the consequences would be unimaginable. Not to mention, the little girl was only 16 years old this year. What could she know? For the young girls in this era, it was only on the night before they got married, when the mother and the child were blushing together. Only then would the mother give a few simple pointers, and then bestow an erotic silk to the daughter. Then, she would sneakily let the daughter keep it close to her body. Of course, there would also be a piece of white handkerchief that she would carry with her at all times, indicating the purpose of it. Then, she would send her mother's most trusted personal nanny to escort her to the wedding. At this time, the real enlightenment would begin. That was, how to do certain things, and so on. This loyal and devoted old nanny would teach her by example. Cough, 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 even her own mother would be too shy to talk about it in front of her own daughter. Therefore, the fact that Dugu Xiaoyi knew so much, and even knew the ambiguous phrase, cooked rice, was already quite an amazing thing. Dugu Xiaoyi's ignorance was the most normal, the cutest, and the purest. On the contrary, if a girl from a respectable family like her knew everything in this aspect, she could quickly pick up the cart, and spontaneously pose when the man said, "Old man." How **king terrifying would it be? Not to mention other things, who would dare to marry such a daughter-in-law in this era? Even if he forced himself to marry her, he would not be happy for the rest of his life. Looking at the culprit in front of her, Guan Qinghan had a complicated look in her eyes. She didn't know why she couldn't feel any hatred at all, even though she had suffered so much because of her. Wasn't it because of her that she had lost her virginity, which was as precious as her life, and suffered so much pain? It was her who thought she was smart enough to cook some rice. The firewood was burning and the rice was cooked, but she was scared away by the rice that she had cooked, and then she took advantage of it. Wait a minute. Why did she say took advantage of her? Obviously, she was the one who suffered undeserved calamity. How could this be called taken advantage? It's so painful, it's so painful. How much did I suffer, thinking of this? Guan Qinghan's face suddenly burned like a fire, but she didn't know whether it was because of anger or shame. Sister Qinghan, I'm really sorry about that. I didn't mean it. I really didn't know it would turn out like this. Dugu Xiaoyi had a sad face, and her face was full of heartache. However, her heartache was because she had missed that once-in-a-lifetime great opportunity. Moreover, the rice that she had cooked was eaten by someone else, and she still had to apologize and apologize. The little girl felt very wronged. It's nothing. It's all in the past. Guan Qinghan forced a smile. She wanted to raise her hand, but she couldn't. It was really too painful. Even the slightest movement would cause a heart-wrenching pain. Sister Qinghan, does it hurt? Dugu Xiaoyi stammered for a long time. Seeing that Guan Qinghan didn't move at all, she couldn't help but ask curiously, Sister Qinghan, does it hurt? Cough, cough, cough. Guan Qinghan blushed and looked at her. How could she answer this question? No matter how she answered it, it wouldn't be right. Sister Qinghan, actually, even if you don't answer me, I know that it must be very painful, right? Sister Qinghan, you've suffered. Dugu Xiaoyi said with some sympathy. He hit you, right? He hit me? Guan Qinghan's beautiful eyes widened inexplicably. Where did this come from? June Moxie was poisoned and he wasn't crazy. Why would he hit me? Yes. That day, I also saw Brother Moc's expression. It was too scary. He must have hit you. Ai, it's all my fault, Dugu Xiaoyi said with some absent-mindedness. It was obvious that she wanted to say something but didn't dare to say it. He. Guan Qinghan finally understood. It turned out that this little girl didn't understand anything. Just now, she thought that, however, her courage was a little too big. How could she dare to ask anything? Sister Qing Han, can I ask you a question? Dugu Xiaoyi saw that Guan Qing Han suddenly smiled. Her heart inexplicably relaxed. She couldn't help but feel relaxed. It was a little bit like her usual unscrupulous self. What question? You can ask. Guan Qing Han looked at her tenderly. She couldn't do anything about this little girl. Ah, cough, cough. That. How did you eat? Is it delicious? Dugu Xiaoyi's hands rubbed the corner of her clothes. Her charming face was crimson. She was somewhat embarrassed. What? What do you mean, how did I eat? I didn't eat anything. Guan Qing Han looked at her in surprise. Why did this little girl speak so incomprehensibly today? It's brother Emosia. Wasn't he cooked by me? Dugu Xiaoyi's voice became lower and lower. Her face became redder and redder. She gathered her courage and asked, after that, the cooked rice was eaten by you alone. How did you eat it? Chapter 394. Today's breakout. The 11th of this month, the 6th breakout. I'm very satisfied even though I only occupied 3rd place for one day. That moment of glory and glory was given to me by you. It was given to the evil monarch by everyone. So, leave the writing to me, and the monthly votes to you, the glory belongs to us. The first chapter has arrived. 234, it's night time. Today, I'm going to my aunt's house to look at the autumn. Haha, it's a local custom to visit relatives during the Dragon Boat Festival and the Mid-Autumn Festival. But don't worry, I won't go back on my words since I've said that I'll break out. I feel that my character is still very strong until now. I won't say anything else. I'll leave everything to you. Jun Moxie's thinking was very simple. He didn't want to run into a marathon debate and wrangle with the other party when it was inconvenient for him to act. You're not obedient, are you? Very well, send an assassin to kill him with a sword, and then we'll talk. Do I have the time to waste with you guys? My time is very precious. Hai Chen Feng and Song Shang were stronger than Bailey Luoyun, but Hai Chen Feng was a man who valued friendship and righteousness. His character was close to that of a chivalrous character, and he couldn't take on this responsibility. Song Shang was addicted to alcohol, and that was his greatest weakness. Therefore, neither of them were suitable to be the core of the army. Therefore, Jun Moxie attached great importance to Bailey Luoyun. Jun Emosia's silhouette passed through the commander's tent. Jun Wu-yi, Solitary Falcon, the 3 Dongfang swords, Duanmu Chao Fan, Sikong and Yi, and the others couldn't help but be startled when they saw him. They felt a kind of cold and towering aura permeating the entire world. It was like a peerless sword that had killed countless people, flashing past in front of the tent. It was only a short time, but it was enough to cause people's hearts to tremble. How could such a powerful and outstanding person suddenly appear in the military camp? The 7 people turned their heads to look at the same time. They saw Jun Moxie's white silhouette flash past the tent's entrance. Although it was just a glimpse, the 7 of them were stunned at the same time. Jun Moxie! It's actually Jun Moxie! How was this possible? Out of the 7 people in the tent, any one of them was a peerless master? Any one of them was a hero of a region. Their eyesight and senses were sharp. How could an ordinary person compare to them? Most people who encountered this kind of situation would only be surprised for a moment, but these 7 people immediately thought of the essence of the matter. This kind of awe-inspiring feeling, how many people must be killed to cultivate such a disdainful and cruel feeling? What kind of things did one have to experience to have such a feeling of being above the clouds? How many life and death situations did he have to experience before he could have this kind of calmness in his soul? As the blood general, Jun Wui had once commanded millions of troops. When he was in power, wherever he pointed, corpses would be strewn across thousands of miles, and pools of blood would flow for tens of thousands of miles. But now that June Moxie had unintentionally displayed this kind of bearing, he had to admit that he did not have it. Jun Wui was undoubtedly a sentimental person. He would never be able to reach June Moxie's current height in his life because of this sentimental aspect. The solitary eagle had moved unhindered throughout the world. He had killed people like scything flax. He was arrogant and unruly. His Xian cultivation had reached the apex, and he was a supreme expert. But he didn't have that kind of unattainable and transcendent aura of June Moxie. Dongfang's 3 swords were assassins. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that their hands were stained with blood. They could kill people as if they didn't exist. But their own murderous aura was far from the same shocking sharpness that June Moxie had. Duanmu Chao Fan and Sikong and Yi didn't need to be mentioned. The 2 of them had already stared blankly. In fact, everyone in the tent had stared blankly. No one had expected that the protagonist of the joke that everyone had been talking about last night would give everyone such a big shock today. This impact was too strong. It was simply earth-shattering. Jun Wui, you motherf ***. I didn't see it wrong, right? Dongfang Wenjian spoke incoherently. That person who had just passed by is your nephew? My nephew? Wenxian's son? Emos, yeah, that little bastard? Everyone's eyes were firmly fixed on Jun Wui as soon as he asked this question. Motherf ***, how many things has your Jun family been hiding? Such a young man has actually appeared as a debauchee for more than 10 years. How did he do it? Jun Wui's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. He spoke as if he was still in a dream. How would I know? That person was Emosia, right? He should be. Dongfang Wendao was furious. What should be? You've been holding him since he was born. Who would know if you don't know? Give me a definite answer. That's right. Who would know if you don't know? Everyone looked at Jun Wui with a strange expression. This guy is still trying to hide things even at this time. Jun Wui was speechless. He was completely speechless. I don't know what's going on either. I really don't know. June Moxie also didn't know that his walking past the commander's tent had brought such a big shock to everyone, as well as a considerable amount of trouble to his third uncle. He was slowly gathering his murderous aura. It was a feeling that he hadn't felt for a long time. As he walked forward, the murderous aura in his heart was gradually awakened. The bloodthirst in his bones was slowly gathering, and the arrogance in his soul was gradually spreading out. He had already calculated the distance between his tent and the Bailey family's tent. From the moment he took his first step to the moment he stopped in front of the Bailey family's tent, he would give everyone in the Bailey family an irresistible feeling. He wanted to subdue Bailey Luoyun in one fell swoop. Moreover, he wanted to fulfill Bailey Luoyun's wish. Bailey Luoyun hadn't said it, but Jun Moxie understood. Guan Qing Han and Duguxiaoi were in a plain-colored tent in front of them. They had been busy for half the night. Both of them were freshening up. Guan Qing Han had recovered a lot even though she had only rested for a short time. After all, Dashao had helped Guan Qing Han to recuperate. Moreover, she had rested for a whole night. So, she had recovered a lot. At least, she could move and walk now. Duguxiaoi sighed in despair. It seemed that she wasn't as energetic as Guan Qing Han. The little girl's eyelids drooped down with a heavy heart. She gestured at her chest and buttocks from time to time. The more she gestured, the more inferior she felt. Why are you squeezing? Why is elder sister Qing Han so big? Duguxiaoi had somewhat lost her self-confidence. She hung her head and said in a dejected manner, Elder sister Qing Han, your figure is very good. It's big when it should be big. How did you do it? Guan Qing Han blushed. She said angrily, What do you mean how did I do it? You're still young. You'll be big in 2 years. Perhaps you'll be bigger than me. Duguxiaoi held her cheeks in her hands. Her soul had wandered away. She didn't hear what Gu Xiaoi had said. She murmured, so big, so soft. Elder brother Emosia must be very comfortable to touch. I felt very comfortable when I touched it last night. Can I be that big in the future? Can I really? Guan Qinghan was embarrassed and anxious. She covered her mouth. Stupid girl. What are you yelling for? Duguxiao's mouth was covered by Guan Qinghan's hand. Tears started to flow down her cheeks. Drop by drop, they fell on Guan Qinghan's hand. She looked very pitiful. Guan Qinghan was shocked. She thought that she had hurt her. She quickly let go of her hand. Duguxiao's tears flowed more and more. They slowly formed a line. Her mouth was about to flatten. Her eyes were filled with helplessness. It was obvious that she was extremely sad. Xiaoyi. What's wrong with you? Quick, tell me. Guan Qinghan wiped her tears in a flurry. She asked worriedly. I know that elder sister is comforting me. My big place isn't as big as yours, and it's not soft, boo-hoo. Duguxiao finally started to cry. Moreover, I let go of such a good opportunity last night. I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid. I'm so stupid. Duguxiao cried so hard that she couldn't catch her breath. She was sobbing nonstop. Guan Qinghan was completely speechless. At this moment, Duguxiao suddenly saw a figure. She stopped crying. She rubbed her eyes hard as if she couldn't believe her eyes. She exclaimed in surprise, Big brother Emosia? Duguxiao had called out elder brother Emosia in an unfathomable manner. In fact, it seemed as if she had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Guan Qinghan didn't want to turn around. But when she heard Duguxiao's voice, she couldn't help but turn around. Not far away, a figure in white was slowly approaching. He stepped on the rising sun. He was like a jade tree in the wind. But as he approached, a stifling aura assaulted his senses. At this moment, Duguxiao almost thought that she had seen the emperor. Yes, this was the feeling. This was a feeling that could only be felt when facing an emperor who held great power and looked down on the common people. It was the style of a monarch. His light footsteps sounded like he was stepping on the drums of the mortal world. It made the millions of living beings in the world rejoice, fear, and worship him. Is this still the Jun Moxie that I can't forget? Is this still the glib-tongued Jun Moxie, my big brother Emosia? Duguxiao fell into a trance. She felt as if she was dreaming. Her beautiful eyes were filled with fanaticism. She was a little intoxicated. At this moment, the image of Jun Moxie overlapped with the dream that she had had since she was young. My husband, I want to be such an unparalleled hero, trampling all the heroes of the world under his feet, ruling over the earth, but only to me with a glib tongue, very considerate, able to tease me when I'm unhappy, hug me when I'm sad, and laugh with me when I'm happy. This is the kind of husband I'm looking for. On the other side, Guan Qinghan was also stunned. At this moment, the image of Jun Moxie made her forget the image of Jun Moxie as a playboy. She had originally wanted to turn her eyes away the moment she saw Jun Emosia. But for some reason, she was completely captivated by his elegant demeanor, and could not move her eyes away at all. At this moment, Jun Emosia's clear and cold gaze shifted over, and met Guan Qinghan's startled gaze. Guan Qinghan's body trembled. Since that night, this was the first time she saw Jun Moxie in broad daylight. The moment their eyes met, a thought suddenly popped up in her mind. Could it be that he had changed into another person? This domineering man was filled with an astonishing aura of supremacy, and filled with a resolute murderous aura. Was this really the man who took her virginity last night, the man who used to be a playboy? Why did he change so much? The two of them looked at each other silently. Jun Moxie's eyes seemed to convey something, but he didn't stop. His cold eyes regained their sharpness. He walked step by step towards the Bailey family's tent. His aura had risen to the peak. Chapter 395. Today's Outbreak. The second chapter has arrived. The third and fourth chapters have been hard at work. They rushed back at 17 o'clock in the afternoon. Then, they started to write with all their might. The Bailey family's people didn't need June Moxie to approach them. They had already felt this fierce aura. After all, Bailey Xiongfeng was at the level of Shen Xian. So, his Xian Qi cultivation was only slightly inferior to the three Dongfang brothers. The other two men from the Bailey family were also Sky Xian experts, and Bailey Luoyun was at the peak of the Jade Xian realm. So, how could they not be able to discern such a clear murderous aura? It was very obvious that this formidable aura was coming towards their tent, and they were the targets. The curtain of the tent was lifted. Bailey Xiongfeng and the other three men stepped out at the same time. The pupils of the leader of the Bailey clan, Bailey Xiongfeng, contracted as he looked at the tall, jade-like silhouette that was slowly walking towards them. The young man before him was bathed in the golden light of the morning sun. He was giving him a great deal of pressure. How is this possible? He's only a young man. So, why is he giving off such a strong sense of pressure? That pair of indifferent eyes seemed to be able to see through all of his thoughts. Bailey Xiongfeng felt as if his life and death were in the hands of this young man. In fact, he didn't even have the slightest ability to act on his own. This was an extreme feeling of powerlessness. Why is this feeling coming from a young man whose cultivation is far inferior to mine? The third young master of the Jun family? Bailey Xiongfeng realized that his mind was trembling with restlessness. He didn't know when he had retreated a step. He then asked in a deep voice in order to conceal his restlessness, "May I ask why the third young master has come here?" In fact, even Bailey Xiongfeng could clearly sense that his voice had become indescribably hollow and powerless in the face of his opponent's magnificent aura. The three experts of the Bailey family had been forced out of the tent by June Moxie's imposing aura. So, they had fallen into an absolute disadvantage. They had lost the right to speak on equal terms. It didn't matter if they were Shen Xian or the Great Master, the result would be the same. Because they were forced to come out. If they could just stay inside the tent and wait for Jun Moxie to speak first, then no matter what Jun Moxie said or whether he wanted to see them or provoke them, their situation would be much better. Unfortunately, none of them managed to do so. There was another member of the Bailey clan behind Bailey Xiongfeng, Bailey Luoyun. He had unexpectedly witnessed Jun Moxie's indifferent yet extremely arrogant and powerful appearance. He had also sensed the biting cold imposing manner that was enough to make the entire world submit to him. His eyes had suddenly erupted with an exceptionally fanatical radiance. Wasn't this the realm he had been dreaming of? This realm might not be the pinnacle, and this aura might not necessarily be the strongest in the world. But this was absolute confidence. This was true pride. He had always been proud of his arrogance, but compared to the outstanding aura of this young man in front of him, it was at most an extreme rebound from extreme inferiority. "Bailey Luoyun, I've come to look for you. We've made an agreement before," Jun Moxie said in a dull tone. He didn't pay any attention to the leader of the Bailey clan, Bailey Xiongfeng. He only spoke to Bailey Luoyun. In fact, he even smiled in a relaxed manner. It seemed as if he hadn't heard the question of Bailey Xiongfeng, the leader of the Shen Xian clan. Or perhaps, he didn't even bother to reply. This was complete disregard. Undisguised disregard. The Bailey clan's self-destructive short-sightedness made Jun Moxie look down on them. From this moment on, the Bailey clan had been removed from the evil monarch's heart. For Bailey Luoyun. For his own plan. Bailey Xiongfeng felt the anger in his heart burning. He suddenly felt as if he had lost his mind. This feeling had rarely happened even when he was an Earth Xian expert in Tian Xian, let alone when he was a first-grade expert in the Shen Xian clan. However, his decades of cultivation and the demeanor of an expert seemed to have been thrown out of the window in front of this youngster. Bailey Xiongfeng didn't know what was going on. He took a deep breath, and tried his best to suppress his anger. Then, he shouted, "Jun Moxie, I'm talking to you!" Bailey Xiongfeng was extremely angry because of the Jun family's sudden strength. Moreover, they had the support of the second great master. However, he still acted appropriately. After all, the Bailey family couldn't afford to offend that man. Bailey Xiongfeng was well aware that even a colossus like the Silver Blizzard City couldn't afford to provoke that person, let alone the Bailey family. Therefore, Bailey Xiongfeng's tone remained gentle even though he was angry. "I've been thinking about our bet. So, I asked the third uncle to keep you here. Now I've finally found the time." Jun Moxie smiled heartily. He looked at Bailey Luoyun in a friendly manner. He then asked, "You're not in a hurry, are you?" Jun Moxie didn't hear Bailey Xiongfeng's words. This was equivalent to 2 resounding slaps on Bailey Xiongfeng's face. Bailey Luoyun suddenly felt a trace of emotion in his heart. He felt a trace of enlightenment. Jun Moxie had spoken to him. In fact, he hadn't even glanced at Shen Xian Bailey Xiongfeng out of the corner of his eye. In fact, he hadn't paid any attention to the leader of the Bailey family. This proved that the Bailey family didn't exist in Jun Moxie's eyes at this moment. What about Tian Xian? What about Shen Xian? He has no regard for anyone else. There's only one person in Jun Moxie's eyes at this moment. Bailey Luoyun. Why? However, Bailey Luoyun was very clear about this reason. This youngster understands me very well. In fact, he knows what I'm thinking. That's right. He's taking revenge for me at this moment. He's taking revenge for me. I've been bullied by the Bailey family for more than 10 years. He knows that even if I leave the Bailey family, I want to leave in a dazzling manner. I want to leave in a free and unrestrained manner. I don't want to sneak out like a dog. I'm a genius. I know my own worth. I would have left the Bailey family a long time ago if I wanted to. No family would refuse a genius like me to join them. But I didn't leave. I wanted the glory that belonged to me. I wanted to take revenge. I didn't want to steam the Mantu. I wanted to take revenge. When now, the glory that I've yearned for even in my dreams has been bestowed upon me by this youngster in front of me. He didn't hesitate to offend a great family like the Bailey family for the sake of my glory, for the sake of the injustice that I've suffered, for the sake of helping me take revenge. Who else in this world would do this for me? Jun Moxie hadn't even spoken a word to recruit him. But Bailey Luoyun was already filled with admiration in his heart. A ray of light flashed in Bailey Luoyun's eyes. He didn't say anything. But he had made a promise in his heart. Jun Moxie is doing what I've asked him to do. Jun Moxie isn't afraid of anything for the sake of his promise. He's insolent. And I must also fulfill my promise. A promise of a lifetime. I'll never abandon him in this life. I'll swear loyalty and devotion to him. However, Bailey Xiongfeng's entire body was trembling in anger. Jun Moxie considers everyone beneath him, and this has made this Shen Xian expert stamp with fury. Your Jun family has a peerless expert to oversee it. Even if your Jun family has washed away its decline, and even if your Jun family has regained its illustrious prestige, but you're still wet behind the ears, and you dare to look down on the Bailey family? You don't even care about me, Bailey Xiongfeng. This is intolerable. Your Jun family may be enjoying limitless glory at the moment, and no one would dare to touch you, but you can't bully others just because you've gained power. Bailey Xiongfeng wasn't a broad-minded person. He didn't care about the future of his family. In fact, he tried to push Bailey Luoyun to his death, and it wasn't hard to see that. Moreover, he had personally escorted Bailey Luoyun to the southern Heaven City to die. So, it could be said that he had gone to extremes. And everyone could see his true colors. However, a person like that would always value his own face. Bailey Xiongfeng let out a low roar. Then, he took a few deep breaths. He was worried about the people behind the June family. So, he tried his best to suppress the anger in his heart. But it was a pity that the more he suppressed his anger, the more it burned. He clenched his teeth and spoke in a muffled voice, June, Xia. Bailey Xiongfeng would have put on a fawning and flattering face if Da Xiao had shown him a little respect at this moment. In fact, it would have been the same as when he had flattered the Shui Hun manor back then. That was because the June family's prestige was far greater than that of the Shui Hun manor in the past. In fact, it was far greater than that of the Shui Hun manor. So, how could a trifling family like the Bailey family provoke them? Even if it's only an empty reputation. Unfortunately, June Moxie still didn't pay attention to him. In fact, it seemed as if he hadn't even heard that muffled thunder-like roar. Da Xiao didn't care about the existence of a trifling Bailey Xiongfeng. June Moxie looked at Bailey Luoyun and smiled. I know that you're still worried. You're worried that your father will suffer unfair treatment from the Bailey family because of you. In fact, he might even be bullied and persecuted even more. But I can tell you that you don't need to worry. June Moxie smiled brightly. He lowered his voice in a serious manner. It seemed as if he was comforting Bailey Luoyun. But it also seemed as if he was announcing something. I don't care about the Bailey family's trash. In fact, I've never cared about them. He had lowered his voice. But he had still spoken these words. I just hope that your worth is worth my effort. Bailey Xiongfeng's cultivation had reached the level of Shen Xian. So, he could hear June Moxie's words very clearly even if he lowered his voice. June Moxie had lowered his voice. It seemed as if he didn't see Bailey Xiongfeng as a human being. Bailey Xiongfeng felt a wung sound in his head. It seemed as if something had broken. He clenched his fists, and his eyes turned red. His face turned purple like an eggplant. Then, he suddenly faced the sky and roared, How dare you! You're infuriating me! June Moxie blinked his eyes. He clasped his hands behind his back and slightly frowned. Then, he said to Bailey Luoyun in a leisurely manner, The weather isn't good. The sun is blazing. But it's thundering. It's truly a drought. Chapter 396. Today's third update is here. Fourth update is in progress. Please give me some encouragement. Bailey Xiongfeng had completely ignored the fact that the June family had an unrivaled peerless expert behind them. It would have been fine if Bailey Xiongfeng had ignored the fact that the June family had an unrivaled peerless expert. After all, the expert wasn't in front of him. So, he wouldn't be finished right away. But, he had overlooked another fatal point in his rage. He was already at an absolute disadvantage in terms of aura. Right now, all of his actions were under the control of June Moxie's aura, and everything was within June Moxie's grasp. June Moxie could clearly sense where Bailey Xiongfeng was going to attack even if he closed his eyes and ears. Moreover, Bailey Xiongfeng had been enraged by June Moxie. So, his attacks had lost the sharpness of a Shen Xian expert. His white robe flashed. June Moxie's agility was exceptionally graceful as he floated backwards. His hands were still clasped behind his back. But, he suddenly moved his right hand behind his back, and gently raised it to meet Bailey Xiongfeng's palm. It seemed as if Bailey Xiongfeng had overestimated his own capabilities. But a golden light flashed in his hand. Then, he spun around like a ghost, and stood 30 feet away with his hands clasped behind his back. Everyone was stupefied. Then, a streak of blood shot out with a chi-chi sound. It had come from the center of Bailey Xiongfeng's palm. One move. Only one move. June Moxie was a youngster whose cultivation level was lower than Bailey Xiongfeng's. But, he had injured Bailey Xiongfeng, a Shen Xian expert, with only one move. This was simply unbelievable. Who would have believed such an incredible thing if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes? Even Bailey Xiong Feng himself couldn't believe that he had been injured until he felt a sharp pain in his hand. He had clearly experienced it himself. He had been injured by a 17-year-old youngster. Bailey Xiong Feng is finished. The 7 experts that had followed them were hidden in a corner where no one could see them. With their cultivation, they naturally did not have to worry about being discovered by others. Seeing everything that had happened here, they could not help but sigh. The one who spoke was Dongfang Wenjian. That Bailey Xiong Feng is done for. When he was forced out by Mo Xie's aura, he was already defeated. Solitary Eagle Lengling said, when he was angered by Mo Xie to the point of vomiting blood, his defeat was already decided. Bailey Xiong Feng was defeated by himself. His character is despicable, but his ability is still at the same level as that of Shen Xian. So, he wouldn't have been defeated so easily by a brat who has just entered the Tian Xian realm. Everyone nodded in agreement and fell into deep thought. However, Solitary Eagle, who had just finished speaking, was stunned. He was frightened by what he had just said. He screamed after a long while. His long hair stood on end as he said, "Initial Tian Xian realm. What did I just say? Did I see it wrong? I've really seen a ghost. Motherf ****, when did this brat reach the sky profound primary level?" His incredulous eyes swept over Jun Wu Yi, the 3 Dongfang swords, and the others. He was one of the 8 great masters. However, his eyes were brimming with incredulity at this moment. I clearly remember that he was at the peak of the Jade Xian realm at the time of the Xian Beast War. So, how did he become a Sky Xian expert after only 2 days? Damn it, he has advanced 4 levels in one night. Is there any justice in this world? As soon as he said that, everyone immediately realized this point. In fact, everyone had already ascertained Jun Mo Xie's cultivation a while ago. After all, Jun Wu Yi was the only one among these 7 people. The other 6 were Spirit Xian experts. So, how could they not know? However, no one had thought about this at all. It was only when great supreme martial artist intentionally or unintentionally said something that broke the veil in their hearts, that everyone could finally face this problem directly. Without exception, the mouths of the 7 great experts all widened into an O shape. That's right. Everyone had clearly seen this youngster's cultivation level 2 days ago. He was at the peak of the Jade Xian realm, and everyone had praised him as a genius among geniuses. But how did he advance to the Sky Xian realm in the blink of an eye? Could it be that this thing could fly? How could they praise him now? He was already a genius among geniuses. How could they still praise him? The eyes of 6 of them were once again focused on Jun Wu Yi's face. Their meaning was obvious. You are his uncle. You must know. Are you going to tell us that you don't know either? Jun Wu Yi almost fell off his wheelchair. Why are you all looking at me? I really don't know. All of you might not know this, but even though I'm his uncle, I'm also a mess. This brat has so many secrets. Who knows how many more trump cards he has hidden? Everyone was left dumbstruck for a moment. They saw that Jun Wu Yi wasn't going to give an explanation. Moreover, there was an even more wonderful show being broadcasted live. So, everyone couldn't help but focus their attention on the fight. After all, a Tian Xian Realm Jr. had defeated a Shen Xian Realm Jr. This was a classic battle that could only be seen once in 1,000 years. Looking at the bloody hole in his palm, Bailey Xiong Feng was dumbstruck. He could not believe it. His hand, after so many years of cultivation, it was already impervious to fire and water. Even if it was roasted in a stove, it could last for a few hours without any damage. Even if it was a treasured sword, he would dare to block it with his bare hands without getting hurt. But now, he could not even see the opponent's weapon clearly, and it had already pierced through his palm. Behind him, Bailey Han Hai's eyes were wide open. He had never seen his elder brother in such a difficult situation. Moreover, He was in such a difficult situation at the hands of a young man. Bailey Luo Yun looked at everything calmly. To be honest, he was also very surprised. Although he was surprised, it was within his expectations. Jun Mo Xie had arrived in such a domineering manner, and hadn't given the Bailey family any face. So, Bailey Luo Yun knew that this matter was bound to happen. Jun Moxie would not have done this if he was not confident. Although this was Tiannan City, it was the Jun family's home ground. With so many experts around, he believed that any one of them would be able to kill Bailey Xiongfeng. However, Bailey Luo Yun did not expect that Jun Moxie would personally make a move. Moreover, he had the upper hand. Jun Moxie is obviously younger than me, but he has such a strong cultivation. Bailey Luo Yun knew that Jun Moxie was stronger than me, but I didn't think that he would be able to reach this realm. That realm was far beyond my reach, the Tianxian realm. Moreover, he was able to challenge a powerhouse like Shen Xian with the strength of a Tianxian, and even defeat him easily. What is a true genius? Perhaps only Jun Moxie is qualified to be called a genius. All the so-called geniuses in the world are overshadowed by this mysterious youth. Bailey Luo Yun's arrogance disappeared as soon as this thought appeared in his mind. In terms of family background, Jun Moxie is the only descendant of the Jun family in Tianxiang. He is like a jewel. But what about me? In terms of Xian strength, Jun Moxie is only 17 years old. But he has already surpassed me by more than one level. In fact, the difference is like heaven and earth. They can't be mentioned in the same breath. I was still feeling complacent about Yu Xian's achievements. But this youth who is 6 or 7 years younger than me is already fighting with a powerhouse like Shen Xian. Moreover, he has the upper hand. What is there to be proud of? Can I be reserved? Bailey Luo Yun was thoroughly convinced. But Bailey Xiongfeng was completely enraged on the other side. In fact, he had gone crazy. He couldn't accept such a crushing defeat. Dealing with Jun Moxie with his Shen Xian cultivation and his status as an elder is the same as bullying the young. So, I wouldn't have attacked him if this youngster hadn't gone too far. I had wanted to teach him a lesson, and then explain the reason to Junwui. Then, I would have handed this matter over to Junwui. This way, I would have been able to maintain the reputation of being magnanimous. I wouldn't have offended the Jun family. After all, Jun Moxie had insulted the Bailey family first, and no one would have been able to tolerate that. So, I didn't kill him on the spot. So, I believed that I would have given the Jun family enough face. And I believed that the Jun family wouldn't have caused any more trouble. However, I hadn't expected that I would be defeated even though I had planned everything out. Moreover, I was defeated in one move. What else can I say? Should I look for Junwui, and tell him that your nephew is a bully? He beat me up. Then, I won't be able to live anymore. Bailey Xiongfeng's palms whistled through the air. His eyes were glaring like a bell as he continued to attack. Jun Moxie's body seemed to be floating in the air. He was floating in the middle of Bailey Xiongfeng's palms and fists. Jun Moxie's agility and eyesight were very good. So, he could have easily dealt with Jun Moxie's attacks before he had a breakthrough as long as Bailey Xiongfeng didn't launch any large-scale attack. Moreover, his agility had become even more perfect after he had a breakthrough. However, Bailey Xiongfeng's state of mind had become unstable due to his rage. So, he could only blindly attack. However, he was constantly reminding himself that he could teach Jun Moxie a lesson. But, he couldn't kill him. And the Bailey family would be done for if Jun Moxie were to be killed if he were to kill him. And the Bailey family wouldn't even have the ability to protect themselves if that peerless expert were to take revenge. Bailey Xiongfeng was very resentful. But, he only wanted to save his face. He didn't want to bring a disaster upon his family. However, he didn't know that Jun Moxie was also thinking about this at the same time. Should I kill him? Should I kill Bailey Xiongfeng? Is it worth it? Da Xiao was thinking about whether or not he should kill him. And he wasn't thinking about whether or not he could kill him. Bailey Xiongfeng's moves seemed extremely powerful and overbearing in the eyes of other people. But they were full of loopholes in the eyes of a great expert like Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie had dabbled in almost all the moves of the Shaolin and Wudong sects in his previous life. But there were obvious loopholes in those moves that had been accumulated for thousands of years. So, what about the Bailey family? Of course, Jun Moxie wouldn't have been able to kill Bailey Xiongfeng even if he had been able to see the flaws in his move. After all, there was a huge disparity between their strength. Shen Xian's body was so strong that ordinary people couldn't even imagine it. It was just like the day when Da Xiao had fought with Dongfang Qidao. Although he had seemed to have the upper hand, he had been unable to shake Bailey Xiongfeng. The situation back then was very similar to what was happening now. But the result was completely different. How could the current Da Xiao be compared to the Mo Xie of that day? Chapter 397. Today's Outbreak. The fourth chapter has arrived. After transforming ordinary iron into a rare metal, it had become so powerful that it could cut through iron as if it were mud even though it was only a small amount. Jun Moxie had secretly used that toothpick-sized sword to make a hole in Bailey Xiongfeng's hand. This was a clear proof of this. Jun Moxie needed to consider whether to kill him or not. What would be the benefit of killing him? What would be the benefit of not killing him? Which was more important? He needed to weigh the pros and cons. Bailey Luoyun would have no choice but to rely on him if he killed Bailey Xiongfeng. But if he didn't kill him, Jun Moxie chuckled. He suddenly felt that he was being silly. The result would be the same whether he killed him or not. However, Jun Moxie realized that the real knot in his heart was the condition that Bailey Luoyun had proposed on that day. Slaughter everyone from the Bailey family who had come here. However, Jun Moxie didn't want to do so. It wasn't that Da Xiao didn't want to accept this condition. Or, he had some other misgivings. But, Da Xiao didn't want to go along with Bailey Luoyun. Who would be the leader if I agreed to whatever that kid said? Wouldn't that affect my authority? However, Jun Moxie realized that he had been overthinking. Bailey Luoyun didn't want to kill them. But, the real issue is, do I want to kill them? If I don't want to kill them, even if Bailey Luoyun begs me, even if he begs me, it'll be in vain. If I want to kill them, even if Bailey Luoyun begs me to spare their lives, I'll still kill them if I want to. All of this has nothing to do with Bailey Luoyun. This matter belongs to me and Jun Moxie. Jun Mo Xie whistled, and his white robes fluttered in the wind. His agility suddenly accelerated, and in the blink of an eye, he changed directions 3 times. He cut in and out like a ghost, and then turned around to retreat. Leng Leng was standing 50 feet away from Bailey Xiongfeng. Her eyes were brimming with murderous intentions. In fact, it seemed as if they were about to materialize. Mo Xie is going to kill him, Solitary Eagle said solemnly when he sensed Jun Moxie's sudden surge of monstrous, killing intent. This great master-level expert was the highest amongst everyone present. Moreover, Great Master Ying was also famous for his Qin Gong. Therefore, he was the only one who could clearly see through Da Xiao's every move. Even the 3 Dongfang brothers, who were also famous for their movement techniques, couldn't see through Jun Moxie's movements when he displayed his extreme speed. Jun Moxie had continuously changed his position a moment ago. And it was precisely because of the 3 biggest loopholes in Bailey Xiongfeng's move. Moreover, they were the blind spots in which Bailey Xiongfeng could be killed in one strike. But there would be a near-death counterattack. Therefore, Jun Moxie had retreated in a flash, and was looking for a better opportunity. Xikong and Yi had been paying attention to the development of this entire matter from the beginning to the end. He couldn't help but sigh. This boy is advancing step by step. His strategy is brilliant. First, he gained the upper hand by a show of strength. He used his murderous aura to force Bailey Xiongfeng to reveal himself. Then, he put him in a disadvantageous position in one fell swoop. His agility is so fast that I've never seen anything like it in my life. Jun Sunshao has been leading the fight from the beginning. He has restrained his murderous aura after he had successfully provoked the fight. Then, he has used some words to provoke Bailey Xiongfeng's most powerful anger. This has made him lose control of his emotions and abandon his usual sobriety. Consequently, he has made a mistake in his judgment. Then, he has struck a thunderous blow and injured Bailey Xiongfeng's right hand. And he has disrupted Bailey Xiongfeng's rhythm. He has finally revealed his fangs now. He has displayed his extreme agility and is preparing to deal a fatal blow. This is a one-on-one fight between two people. But it's the most efficient and effortless way to deal with the enemy. I can't believe that the rumored third young master of the Jun family, the #1 debauchee of the Tianxiang Empire, is actually such a ferocious person. Sikong Inye's voice was full of envy. Jun Wui was beside him, and he felt very happy. I won't dare to casually exchange pointers with my precious nephew in the future. His agility technique has improved. So, I'll be defeated by that boy if I were to exchange pointers again, Dongfang Wendao said with a lingering fear in his voice. You're an old man. Shut up. I find it strange that Bailey Xiongfeng. Why would he bother with Mo Xie with his status? Wouldn't everything be fine if he went straight to Jun Wui to seek justice for him? The Jun family's style is such that Wu Yi won't cover up his shortcomings. And this matter with Mo Xie was indeed improper. But it's good now. He won't have the face to live if he loses. And it'll be a joke if he wins. The magnificent Shen Xian family is fighting with a 16-17-year-old boy. That's ridiculous. Dongfang Wenjin's voice was full of contempt. He didn't even try to conceal his contempt for the leader of the Bailey family. But he was thrown into confusion when Mo Xie forced him to come out. And that's probably because of the attraction between the two of them. So, a third person wouldn't have been able to detect it. In fact, I wouldn't have been able to detect it if I hadn't been much stronger than them. Solitary Eagle was a great master. So, his knowledge was extensive. So, he had hit the nail on the head and pointed out the key point. The rhythm of the fight was completely under Mo Xie's control after he came out. Mo Xie wouldn't have been able to continue unless Bailey Xiongfeng turned around and went inside without saying anything. But Mo Xie would have been able to control Bailey Xiongfeng's anger as long as Bailey Xiongfeng spoke. Then, he would have killed him. Bailey Xiong. Feng is too lacking in self-restraint. Duanmu Chao Fan struggled so much that the veins on his neck bulged out. He then spoke with difficulty. He was angered by such a young man to this extent. I don't look up to him. Sikong Inyi clutched his head and cried out in pain. He had become dizzy from this series of stuttering. You have good self-restraint? Why don't you try if you were in Bailey Xiongfeng's position? I reckon that you wouldn't even need Jun Moxie to do anything. You would have died from anger. Sikong Inyi looked at him with disdain. It's easy for you to talk. Why are you boasting? Everyone thought about this and realized that it was reasonable. They believed that anyone else in Bailey Xiongfeng's position wouldn't be able to endure being humiliated by Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie would have suffocated him to death even if he hadn't died from anger if he had been in Duanmu Chao Fan's place. That brat has too many tricks up his sleeves. Pay attention. The main event is coming. Solitary Eagle's eagle-like eyes had been watching the battle closely. Then, he suddenly shouted a warning. Bailey Xiongfeng could clearly feel Jun Moxie's cold, murderous aura. This made his frantic mind suddenly sober up. He felt an extreme sense of danger, and subconsciously used his unique skill, the violent dragon palm. Suddenly, the shadows of palms appeared in the sky with a whistling sound. Each palm had a tyrannical strength that could break a steel. They rumbled as they pressed towards June Moxie's direction. They converged into a mountain of palms in a flash, and came crashing down with a loud rumbling sound. June Moxie's white-clothed figure flashed once again amidst the palms. He left an afterimage in his original place, and remained motionless. Then, he got crushed by the palms. However, his real body had already arrived in front of Bailey Xiongfeng. In fact, he was almost face to face with Bailey Xiongfeng. Then, he grinned at Bailey Xiongfeng. His spotlessly white teeth gleamed with a faint magnetic light. They looked like the eyes of a hungry wolf on a cold winter night. Bailey Xiongfeng was startled. He hastily retreated with all his strength. However, it was too late. A golden light flashed, and a line of blood splashed out. June Moxie's silhouette retreated with a whiz sound. Everyone saw his silhouette retreating to his original position. However, Bailey Han Hai was standing 30 feet behind Bailey Xiongfeng. He was watching the fight in anger. However, June Moxie's white-clothed figure had already arrived in front of him. Then, a vague golden light flashed again. Bailey Han Hai shouted in disbelief. His eyes were perfectly round. June Moxie's palms heavily struck Bailey Han Hai's chest like a thunderbolt. The middle-ranked Tianxian expert's body was shaken 3 feet away. His entire chest had caved in. Nobody had expected that June Moxie would launch a sneak attack on Bailey Han Hai while he was in the middle of an intense fight with Bailey Xiongfeng. So, his target wasn't Bailey Xiongfeng alone. He didn't want to let any of them go. Then, June Moxie stood at Bailey Han Hai's original position. He grinned at Bailey Luoyun and said in a soft voice, "I've fulfilled your wish. I'll give these 2 people to you as a gift." Bailey Luoyun remained silent. His facial expression was extremely complicated. Bailey Xiongfeng and Bailey Han Hai were still standing upright. Their bodies were trembling, and their faces were full of despair. Solitary Eagle heaved a long sigh and murmured, "He killed Shen Xian in one move. Then, he attacked Tian Xian in the blink of an eye. Both of them died. His white robe wasn't stained with blood. This kind of scheming, this kind of agility, it's really amazing. I have to say that I'm impressed." Bailey Xiongfeng stood motionless like a clay sculpture. He slowly turned around after a long while. He fixed his gaze on June Moxie. Then, he suddenly said in a low voice, "Let me see your weapon." An arrow of blood had shot out from an unknown place on his body. But, the wound couldn't be seen at this time. June Moxie remained silent for a while. Then, he turned his palm over. A toothpick-like sword appeared in his hand. It was only half the size of a finger. The sword emitted a dazzling golden light. Bailey Xiongfeng smiled miserably and said, "I saw that you had a sword on your waist. So, I was on guard. I didn't expect that the real killer move was already in your hand." The 7 people who were watching from the side understood what he meant. Why did June Moxie not carry a sword with him? Why did he carry a sword today? So that's why. This guy has been scheming since that time. Good heavenly weapon. Bailey Xiongfeng straightened his neck, and exposed a strange smile on his face. Suddenly, his body went limp. Then, a thin but powerful stream of blood spurted out of his neck. It flew several feet away. It looked magnificent under the sunlight. It looked like a riot of colors. Then, he fell down like a pile of mud. It turned out that June Moxie had cut his throat when the golden light had flashed. Bailey Xiongfeng of the Shen Xian clan was dead. Bailey Han Hai also fell down with a bang sound. Beneath him, a pool of blood slowly flowed out. This Tianxian clan expert hadn't even had the time to say a word. He had been killed by June Moxie. Chapter 398. Today's first update has arrived. Preparing for the next explosion, fight? Bailey Luoyun forced a smile. His usually calm and pretty face showed signs of turning blue. It wasn't that Bailey Luoyun was a coward. It was because Jun Dashao's battle record was too valiant. Big brother, you've killed Shen Xian in no time. And you've even sent Tian Xian to hell. So why would I fight with you? I, Bailey Luoyun, think highly of myself. But my brain isn't flooded with water. Moreover, I haven't been kicked by an animal. So, I won't do such an arrogant thing. He clearly knew that he was no match for the opponent in front of him, yet he still stubbornly resisted. Wasn't there something wrong with his head? If Bailey Luoyun had the tyrannical ability to challenge, defeat, or even kill Shen Xian, the Bailey family would have been annihilated by him a long time ago. How could he have waited until now to endure the endless oppression of the strong? At this moment, Bailey Luoyun looked at the two corpses on the ground. The two corpses belonged to the elders of the family who had once shaken the region. His expression was extremely complicated. These people had relied on their tyrannical strength to suppress him for so many years. No matter how hard he worked, no matter how much he worked for the family, they always found him an eyesore and could always find excuses to torture him. Now they were lying coldly on the ground, becoming two piles of meaningless dead meat. Bailey Luoyun was somewhat close to these people by blood. However, these people were his mortal enemies in his heart. There's no need to compete. According to our agreement, I will follow you for the rest of my life. My life is yours from now on. Bailey Luoyun straightened his body and fixed his eyes on Jun Moxie. His eyes suddenly became fiery. Burn. Bailey Luoyun felt as if he had suddenly broken a shackle in his heart the moment these two people lay down in front of him. He felt a sense of emptiness in his heart. But what followed was an endless will to fight. All the fighting spirit hidden in his heart was ignited. He believed that as long as he followed this young man in front of him, his future life would be even more colorful. What do you need me to do? Bailey Luoyun asked. It's too early to ask these questions. Jun Moxie smiled faintly. He suddenly turned his head and said, I say, you spectators should have seen enough, right? If you haven't seen enough, then there's no point in watching anymore. The show has already ended. Ha ha ha! There was a burst of laughter, and the seven of them walked out one after another. Dongfang Wendao gave him a thumbs up. Emos, yeah, you're really amazing. Even Shen Xian was killed by you. Uncle is really curious, how did you do it? When did you reach the realm of Tian Xian? You little fellow, you're really surprising. If you had this kind of trick that day, Uncle would have a tragic ending. Today, Tian Xian defeated Shen Xian. You have created a legend. As soon as he said that, everyone immediately focused their attention on Jun Moxie. Actually, it's not that magical. There's a mystery behind it. Jun Moxie rolled his eyes and said, My master has a unique secret technique. It can be said to be unparalleled in the world. It can unleash the maximum potential of a person in a very short period of time. Moreover, there's another advantage. It doesn't have too many sequelae. It can recover after 3 to 5 days of rest. It's not like those so-called secret techniques. It's easy to damage one's vitality and shorten one's lifespan. Ah, that's it. Moreover, I heard that Bailey Xiongfeng has been suffering from diarrhea for the past few days. He doesn't have any strength left. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to defeat him even if I had improved my strength. Everyone gnashed their teeth in hatred. What kind of **T explanation was this? Bailey Xiongfeng had diarrhea? Who the hell had seen a master Shen Xian suffer from diarrhea? Even a meal full of poison wouldn't necessarily be able to make a master Shen Xian suffer from diarrhea. However, they were greatly shocked by his previous explanation. This secret technique can unleash the maximum potential of a person in a very short period of time. This is astonishing, but it's secondary. The most astonishing thing is that the price to use this secret technique is to rest for 3 to 5 days. What kind of secret technique is this? It's no wonder that the secret techniques of the world are nothing to him. It's too overbearing. However, how can it be shown to people so easily since it's a secret technique? The 7 great experts were helpless for a time. After all, this secret technique was related to a peerless powerhouse that nobody could afford to provoke. Emosia has a matter that I would like to request of the 2 seniors. Jun Moxie smiled as he cupped his hands towards Duanmu Chao Fan and Sikong and Yi. Then, he spoke in a rather polite manner. The 2 seniors are about to leave this place and return to their clans. So, I don't know if you can help me with a small matter while you're at it? To the 2 seniors, this matter is really as easy as lifting a finger. What is it? Sikong and Yi naturally won't decline if it's within his capabilities, Sikong and Yi asked vigilantly. He had only seen this kid a few times, but he knew that this kid was a little fox, and he would fall into his trap if he wasn't careful. So, he had no choice but to be careful. I won't decline if it's within my capabilities. Then, I'm sorry if it's beyond my capabilities. No, don't ask question, you, just say it. Duanmu Chao Fan was very honest. He hadn't thought of this much. He stroked his beard, and assumed the posture of a senior expert. He had taken on everything. He had said that it would be a small matter, if it was as easy as lifting a finger. Does this kid want me to commit murder and arson for him? I'll do him a favor if I agree. After all, the Jun family situation isn't the same as it used to be. Sikong and Yi looked at him in a bad mood. He thought, this guy is a typical piece of material that has been sold. But, he still helps to count the money. I've been dragged into this calamity this time. Then, he heard Jun Moxie happily say with a smile, it's really not a big deal. Well, I'll send 50 guards to escort the 2 of you in order to avoid the harassment of some ignorant juniors who don't have eyes. No need, the 2 of us don't have great skills. But we don't need anyone to escort us. So, there's no need to trouble the 3rd young master. We appreciate it. Sikong and Yi hastily shook his head and refused. Everyone also felt that this kid's words were somewhat unreliable. What kind of talk is this? The 2 family heads and 2 powerful Shen Xian experts are traveling together. But they still need an escort? Could it be that there would be some blind little thief who would rob them? How stupid would that person be? Everyone was thinking this when they heard Jun Moxie continue to speak. 2 seniors, please listen to me. The primary task of those guards is to escort the 2 seniors back. But, they will conveniently pick up Luo Yun's family when they pass through the Bailey family. They won't delay the 2 seniors' time. Hee. I hope that the 2 seniors won't take offense to this small matter. After all, Emosia doesn't mean to be negligent. Everyone was speechless for a while. Bah! This guy's shamelessness and the thickness of his skin should be reevaluated. 6 of the 7 people fixed their gazes on Jun Wui. Their meaning was very obvious. Is this kid really the only descendant of the Jun family's direct line of descent? How come the Jun family's upright and plain-spoken temperament can't be seen at all? How is this passing through the Bailey family? Brother, don't you know that we'll have to detour for more than 1,000 kilometers if we're passing through? And he's talking as if he's doing us a big favor. And he's even saying that escorting us is his primary objective. This is too shameless. Sikong and Yi and Duanmu Chao Fan cursed in their hearts. Their faces looked somewhat bitter. Let's not talk about anything else. We've just witnessed you kill 2 of the Bailey family's experts with our own eyes. And now you're going to pick up someone from the Bailey family? Even if we have some status and strength, this matter will still be difficult to talk about. No. Duanmu Chao Fan shook his head like a rattledrum. The Duanmu family's head wasn't stuttering when he saw that a huge trouble was about to befall him. In fact, he had rejected them very quickly. In fact, he was so eloquent that he could even become a litigation master. Seniors, you don't need to be so polite. You've bravely stepped forward for the sake of the June family's matter. You're of noble character and unquestionable integrity. You've earned the admiration of both men and gods. Emosie's action is only a small token of my gratitude. It's not enough to show my respect. But this trivial matter won't take up too much of your time. June Moxie didn't seem to hear his words. Instead, he continued with a smile, I'm sure that you two seniors won't mind a little delay. You must know that you're not only unrivaled in martial arts, but you're also chivalrous and courageous. Moreover, you're real men. You'll also pull out your swords to help if you see someone bullying the weak. Third uncle, solitary master, don't you agree? Junwei nodded again and again. Then, he solemnly said, That's right. Your two elders and third uncle have always treated each other with sincerity. So, they're obviously real men. I can attest to this point. Solitary Eagle had a straight face as he earnestly said, Their reputations are pretty good. I've been getting along with them for the past few days. So, I don't think that they're beasts. Duanmu Chao Fan and Sikong and Yi opened their eyes and mouths wide. They were left speechless. What kind of people are these? This uncle and nephew and solitary eagle are echoing each other. Why are they suddenly saying that we're worse than beasts if we don't agree to travel with them, or if we don't contribute in this matter? Moreover, we won't be men anymore. This is too bad. Junwei used to be so upright. He was so righteous. Could it be that he's also become crafty because he has this cunning nephew? The two men were so depressed that they nearly hit their heads against the wall. Can they say that they don't agree? They can't say it. Motherfew *Cur. You've killed someone. You've poached someone's wife. And you want us to clean up your mess? Moreover, we have to wipe it clean. Not only do we have to wipe it clean, but we also have to find something extra. What the foo *K is going on? Duanmu Chao Fan and Sikong and Yi stared blankly for a long time. Then, they suddenly jumped up. Motherfew *Cur. We're going to be on our way. We're going to get things done as soon as possible. We're going to wait for the news of someone's death to spread. We're going to be on our way. We'll run into you, uncle and nephew. We brothers will admit defeat. Isn't that enough? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.